Leaving behind the hallowed halls of Indianapolis, the teams drove to Wisconsin and prepared to take on Elkhart Lake's famed Road America. In GS class, Eric Smith surprised many by putting his Mustang on pole, while the resurgent Steve Brown took up spot number 2. When the green fell, Steve found himself overwhelmed and slipped to 4th. On the second lap, Jason Breifogel got greedy in Canada corner and wound up with a mouthful of tire barrier. Dan Rash piled the pressure onto Eric Smith until lap 5 when he skillfully outdragged him for the lead. Farther down, Duljan Boldrin defended hard from a charging Andre Trego, but Trego went wide in 3. After a graceful pirouette, he set off to make up for lost time. Meanwhile, in ST class, James Stevenson easily grabbed pole position, and Chris Moran lined up beside him. At the start, Elliot Huffman took evasive action to prevent any first corner chaos, but the MX-5s were through clean. Ayrton Ellis failed to put in a qualifying lap, but was quick to make up for his tail-end start and reached the top 5 by lap 7. Up front, Chris Moran was holding station behind James Stevenson in second and first respectively, but cracks began to show in the Aussie's impenetrable fortress, and James had a huge moment at the kink on lap 11. However, it was Moran who eventually buckled with a spin 2 laps later. Back in GS class, Boldrin narrowly avoided becoming a part of Alexis Molina's bad day. Later on lap 15, Arthur Hermont lost his force feedback at the worst possible moment, and he took a scary plunge into the tires at Canada corner. This brought out the first caution of the day at roughly the halfway mark. The timing meant it was pit stops for nearly everyone. Sadly, when the green returned, Ayrton Ellis ruined his amazing comeback run when he lost control while braking for turn 5. He found himself stopped perpendicular to the track, and Chris Duffy inevitably plowed into him. The caution flags immediately reappeared. Green waved once again on lap 24, and Steve Brown let loose a flyer on the restart. He snagged 2 positions by the time they exited turn 1. In ST, Tuominen slipped by the red and green Castro car of Stevenson to take the lead. This kicked off one of the most intense battles in ST history as the Finn and the Aussie swapped first position lap after lap. But the duel allowed a gaggle of 49 Motorsports MX-5s to close on the pair. With only 2 minutes to go, Dexter Castro saw a chance to jump in the mix, but it came to tears and Stevenson was tipped by the New Englander at turn 5. The number 11 crawled out of the kitty litter with a bent suspension and crushed hopes. When the 90 minutes were up, Dan Rash took home win number 3 of the season. After a fierce battle, Cannonball held on to second and Steve Brown wound up third. In ST, Dexter Castro was not out of the woods yet, and in the heat of trying to claim the final podium spot, made contact once more, this time with Stefan Mauriane. Up front it was a nail-biter to the end, and the fearless Finn withstood Chris Moran's pressure to retain first. Stefan Mauriane took home a well-fought 3rd place. Now that the long straights of Road America are behind them, the teams have arrived in sunny Florida. Which drivers will be able to enjoy some fun in the sun, and who will get burned? We'll find out now amid the powder blue walls of Homestead, Miami's Roval. Welcome to Homestead Miami Speedway, home of Round 9 in the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, and we're bringing it to you live on the Global Sim Racing Channel. I'm Joe Peak. With me in the booth is the topical Richard Losberg. Thanks for joining us, Richard.
Hi, Joe. Nice to be back here with Continental once again.
Absolutely. Also with us is the informative Kevin Brown. Always a pleasure, Kevin.
Hey, Joe. Good to be here again.
We also have a guest commentator joining us once again, and it's none other than the doctor himself, Amjad Yaman. Thanks for hopping in here again, Amjad.
Good evening, guys. Great to be here in Florida.
And as always, behind the scenes is our diligent director, Giancarlo Lenzi, ready to show you every bit of the action. Homestead is usually known for being the location of the Sprint Cup season's finale, but it also hosts some of the best racing of the year with the CESCS. To tell us more about this popular roval, I'll hand it over to Richard.
Yes, thanks, Joe. Well, this is a 2.3 mile long roval track. That means road and oval. There are 11 corners. We're talking about a 90-minute race here. The track is tricky in sections. So, you know, you've got a very, very fast entry into turn 1, flat out in the ST's class for sure. And then you've got a tricky section from turns 2 through to 5. and then a couple of straight sections, and that last hairpin coming back onto the oval is tricky as well, but it's an overtaking point. And then, of course, you've got the draft in that section around the oval. So it's going to be a very, very interesting race, no doubt, with the draft playing a huge part in the placings, particularly early on. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to be happening here, Joe.
I am too, and we've seen some very good action between these powder blue walls before. Isn't that right, Kevin?
Yeah, we have. This has been a track renowned for some interesting racing.
And speaking of interesting racing, we've had plenty this season. Kevin, what's the championship looking like among the Mustangs right now?
Well, in the GS class, Dan Rash has continued to lead. He's 8 points in front of second place Russell Clayson, who's done very, very well this season and is still looking to get that championship overall. So this is not Dan Rash's clincher. He hasn't clinched it in any way. J.D. Baumgartner is sitting third overall. He's 24 points behind. He's missing the race today, so it looks like he's going to drop quite a bit in the standings. In fourth is Steve Brown, the Season 2 championship winner. He's 30 points behind Dan Rash, and he's looking to have another good run here today at a track that he does pretty well at. And in fifth place is German Afanador, who is 44 points back.
So things are remaining very tight among the GS class, and we hope it'll stay that way until the end of the season, but we definitely want to see a good fight today. In the meantime, the ST is looking just slightly different as far as that championship is shaping up. Richard, what are the points sitting at there?
Well, Joe, we've got James Stevenson out in front on 269 points. James Stevenson has been the driver that everyone has to use as a benchmark, I suppose. Stefan Overgaard is 230 points, so he's 39 points back. Bear in mind that you can have a maximum of 55 points, so he's not out of it by any means. And even Elliot Huffman in third place on 219 points, he's minus 50. So he has a chance if James Stevenson has a really, really bad race, which has happened previously in this championship. Those two behind him could take first place away from him. Stefan Morien is in fourth place on 207 points, 62 points back. So even if he had a win and everybody else lost, he could not take the first place. And bringing up the fifth place position, Joe, we've got William Randleman, who had a bit of a rocky start, but seems to have settled down and is doing very, very well in the championship at this point. Back to you, Joe.
It's good to see some fortune changing for some of these guys. But before we talk a little bit more about who's doing what, let's hop down on the track and take you on a tour around here. And I believe Amjad Yaman is going to be the car that we're going to dive into. If our director could spool that up for us, please. Alright, let's do a lap around Homestead Miami Speedway with Amjad Yaman. Coming up to turn 1, it's your typical turn 1 of a Roval. It's going to be very fast. Just clip the inside there and keep your wheels out of the grass on the outside. Heavy braking for 2. If you take any grass, you're probably going to lose control and be in the kitty litter. Stay to the outside for 3. And then get it all the way to the left on the exit, because you got a long straightaway coming up here after 4. Very interesting that you got some banking there on that corner. But you're dumped out on the lead up to 6 here, and this is going to be a good passing opportunity. You can slip inside somebody. And if you pay attention to the exit, Amjad's going to go fairly wide, and that's because there's going to be an access road that you can use. Clip a lot of curb there, and you see right there he used it. Coming on to the next straightaway once again, 7 was kind of a non-corner, just straight flat out through. Up into 8, which is another passing zone, but you might not want to try and make a pass here. You might want to be patient. You'll get a good opportunity. As you can see, it's a very, very tight hairpin. Obviously, exit's very important because it dumps you onto the oval portion. But if you just pass someone, obviously now that guy behind you has the draft. And he might not be able to make it on the outside of the banked portion of 10 and 11, but he could still snipe you to the line at the end. Now look at the entrance on the left to pit lane, that access road there. You want to make note of that, because if you miss it, you can't enter later down the way. You will get a penalty for that. You see Amjad staying right low to the line, and that's the best way around. The fastest way is the shortest way here. So no use in using the banking. But that's a lap around Homestead, Miami. Well, it was good to get a lap from a new face from our drivers that we've rode in this series so far, and Amjad did a really good job around there. But before we talk to Amjad about some of the specifics of the MX-5, GS qualifying is finished, so we have some of the drivers in here. First one up is Dan Rash, who is actually currently leading the championship. Welcome to the booth, Dan.
Thanks, Joe. Glad to be here.
So you've eked out 8 points over Russell at this point, and you seem to be kind of on an upswing after you had that surgery to recover from. How's your knee doing?
Oh, I think I'm about 95%. So as far as racing goes, I think I'm 100%.
That's good to hear. It definitely didn't seem to give you any trouble at Road America. How do you fancy this track compared to the others in this series? Do you think you're pretty strong here, or do you expect to have a little bit of trouble?
I've never done a race here before, but it's a relatively simple track outside of turns 1 and 2. So over the past few days, I've been putting in a lot of hours practicing, so I feel pretty confident here. Once you get past the, I like to call turn 1 and 2 the Hoover, because it'll suck up anybody that wants to go too wide or doesn't take the proper entry. Once you get past there, though, it should be pretty smooth sailing, especially once you get around to the oval. Then you can just kind of sit back and draft for a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I've seen plenty of guys get sucked up by those corners. And speaking of 1 and 2, you know, I know from experience that they can be a little tricky when you've got cross class passing going into there. Do you expect there to be any problems trying to get by the MX-5s going through 1, or do you think everybody's going to play nice today?
I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would say we're going to see a yellow or two come out from turn 1 and 2 tangles. I think one of the good things about the differences between these classes is that turning into 1 and 2, the Mustang and the MX-5 are pretty much identical in cornering speed. So the good part is that being in a Mustang, the MX-5s are pretty predictable. Not like some other classes where the faster car is faster both in a straight line and in the corners. Here, the Mustang is only faster basically in a straight line. So if I come up on an MX-5 and we both hit the brakes at the same time, I can confidently put my bumper right on his and know that we're going to go through the corner at the exact same speed. And through turn 2, they'll actually pull just a little bit faster. So I'm looking forward to that, but I think it's going to catch some of the less experienced guys out, and I predict we're going to have a couple tangles there.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all. Well, we're going to move on to the next driver at this point, but congratulations on pole today.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks for the broadcast, guys.
No problem. Kevin, I believe you have Andre Trago waiting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Andre, can you hear me?
Yeah, Kevin, how you doing?
Doing just fine. How about yourself? You've got a very fast fourth position in qualifying so far, so looking good at this moment.
Yeah, these times are pretty close. It's going to be interesting to see how patient we all are going in, especially to turns 1 and 2 there. But yeah, this is I'm pretty happy with that. That's actually a personal best time for me. So no better time to do it than when you're trying to qualify. So.
Well, congratulations on the PB, absolutely. So last time out at Road America, you had a solid run and got a lot of valuable points. What are you thinking about your goals for today?
Well, not wrecking out, trying to avoid going off anywhere, especially in turn 2. I think that'll be a real game changer if you wind up being in the weeds there. I'll probably put you back at the pack, and just hoping to have a good solid finish today and just stay out of some trouble.
Well, I think you kind of hit on one of the key themes here, staying out of trouble. That's going to be, I think, difficult to do in certain points. So you think you're probably going to be a little more conservative today?
Well, I say that, and then I wind up forgetting it later, it seems like. But I'm going to try and be careful and conservative today. It was I felt a little hairy at Road America a few times. There were a few corners that I probably was a little bit more aggressive than I should have been. I'm going to try and keep that in check today.
All right, sounds good. Well, best of luck today, Andre.
Thanks, guys, and congratulations to Joe for getting married.
Thanks, man. And on that note, I actually have another GS driver in here waiting. We have Steve Brown. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you, Joe.
Steve, you've been steadily but surely working your way back up the standings. You had a bit of a rough start of the season. You're 30 points back. Do you feel like you can manage to get your way back in front of Dan before the season's over?
I think that's going to be a tall task to catch Dan, especially if he shows up for every race. I'm just trying to get, hopefully, back up to Russell, which was looking pretty good here in practice, but he put in a pretty good lap in qualifying here.
You had a very fierce battle with him at Road America 2 weeks ago, and that seems to be a continuation of you guys' battle from, I believe it was Watkins Glen. Are you ready for round 3? Do you think you can hold on to him here for all 90 minutes?
We'll see here. Both of us have about the same pace, and Russell's a tough competitor. Hard on the brakes, goes deep in the turns, so it's hard to get by him. And when he's behind you, it's he's going to go for the pass. So it's been fun. We'll see how it goes today.
Absolutely. And congratulations on a third place qualifying. Good luck.
Thanks, guys. Have fun up there.
Well, we've talked to some of the GS drivers, so let's talk about some of the stories that are going on here, especially some of the stories with the ST drivers. Now, Richard mentioned William Randleman, and we've talked about him a little earlier in the season when we saw more of him. He had a few hairy moments with other drivers, especially when it deals with like lap traffic and whatnot. But Richard, it seems like he's been doing much better. In fact, sitting 5th in the championship is nothing to be ashamed of, especially as a rookie.
Absolutely, Joe. Yeah, William Randleman, in the early part of the season when I was racing in the Continental Series, William was a little bit sketchy just coming into the series as a rookie. I don't believe he understood 100% at the time what it is to race with some really, really good drivers. But to his credit, he has settled down very, very well. And right now, having 5th place in the championship, that's no easy feat with some of the drivers around him, like James Stevenson, Chris Moran, Arthur Chan, and so on. So kudos to him. He's done exceptionally well, Joe.
Very much so. I have to say that he's impressed me in the latter stages, especially after some not necessarily wise moves early on. One thing I do want to talk about is we had last year's finish, which was very controversial and actually caused one of the drivers to leave his team. Richard, I can't remember, were you in that race last year with us when it was Ayrton Ellis and Russell Clayson tangled on the final lap?
I remember it well. I was in that race. I was further back. I had my own tangles with one Ryan Worley, I believe it was, from memory. But yes, that was interesting. And we were talking about Ayrton Ellis then. He is back. I'm watching him on track qualifying as we speak. So we shall see how this one develops, Joe.
Yes, and unfortunately, Russell is not in the same class as Ayrton anymore. Though they could tangle, it won't be for first place unless they're both somehow in first and manage to get with each other in that way. But for those not familiar, what happened last year was that on the final lap, Ayrton Ellis and Russell Clayson were teammates on 49 Motorsports. Ayrton was behind, and in the final corner, he ducked underneath Russell, but he went below the white line, which you are not allowed to race under. And the two made contact, and Ayrton came out on top, but the marshals decided that the overtake was illegal and handed the win back to Russell. So it was an interesting one for sure, and definitely ruffled a few feathers, enough so that Russell decided to leave 49. So since then, he's been doing very well for V Apex. But we'll keep an eye out, see if anybody else makes any sort of moves like that today. But in the meantime, let's go to Amjad about some of the intricacies of how these MX-5s are running this course, such as that turn 1 and 2 complex. Amjad, what sticks out to you the most in the way that these MX-5s have to take that?
It's mostly about balance. I mean, you have to take it as fast as possible because there's not a lot of places where you can break momentum. As we saw last week, the draft is going to be a big part of this race. You know, you have the draft going down the backstretch through NASCAR 3 and 4 and all the way down to turn 1. So those 2 and 3 wide situations we saw last year at the end of last season, at the end of the race, we can see those again throughout the race.
And what about on the GS side, Kevin? I know that Dan touched on it a little bit, that you do have to brake for there, but quick question about what's that like going through the corners in the Mustangs, and also what is some of the strategy going to look like, since the tires seems to always be a big issue for those cars?
Well, turn 1 and 2 are very, very difficult in the Mustang. As Dan said, it's not quite flat out. It's just about flat out, and so your timing has to be absolutely perfect. And then as the balance in the car changes from your tires getting some wear and the fuel going down, it changes your driving style through those corners. So that's a difficult task to keep ahead of that before you go off into the wilderness of between turns 2 and 3. So the big strategy here is actually just going to be kind of how the drivers are able to manage their tires on the front and the rear. They need those fronts to grip good for the 1, 2, 3, 4 complex, but then you need a lot of grip in the rears for the tight hairpins to get off of these straights. So drivers who are able to manage their kicks better than the other drivers are going to have a significant advantage here, and just being able to be aware of that and take advantage of the openings that are provided will provide a good finish.
Absolutely. And speaking of openings and close finishes, one thing that we haven't talked a lot about is the draft on that oval portion. I know in the MX-5s, Richard, that it has a huge effect.
Absolutely. And that is going to be one of the critical, I think, it's going to be the difference between winning and losing here if it's close up front. The draft is huge around the oval section, and everybody's been talking about turns 1 and 2. Let me tell you, in an MX-5, turn 1 is flat out, and then you've got hard braking to get into 2. So, and that can catch you out, because after that it's really slow through turns 3 to 5 when things open up a little bit again. So the draft is going to play an enormous part. Patience, Joe, patience is going to be required here. Those guys who want to be gung-ho in the beginning, those are the ones that are going to cause the cautions, I believe.
Yeah, and we've seen that, especially the first race that they had here. Real quick, though, I want to talk to Russell Clayson, who we have with us in the booth. Russell, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Russell, you are currently sitting second in the championship and second in qualifying. You've only got 8 points between you and Dan. How do you fancy your chances to topple him today and, overall in the championship?
The only chance I have is if Dan overdrives himself. He's much more consistent. He's gotten really good at this season.
Yeah, it seems like his act is really tightened up. I noticed that you've had a lot of battles with Steve Brown lately, and we were asking him if he's ready for round 3, and he seems to be up for whatever may come. Do you think you can fend him off one more time?
If I can't, it's not going to be due to lack of trying. This is going to be a great race. I imagine we're going to put on quite a show out here today.
Absolutely, and it looks like qualification is just ending now, so I'm going to let you go.
Very good, and congratulations, Joe. Welcome to the Happily Married Sim Racers Club.
Thanks, Russell.
Yeah, Joe, everybody knows, because we gave a big shout out to you at the last race at Road America, so they all know about your tying the knot there, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like it. But let's hop to the grid here. I believe we have GS all sorted out, so we can feel safe as the MX-5s complete their laps. Kevin, would you like to run us down what those standings look like?
Will do, Joe. The Grand Sport Mustangs are led by Dan Rash with a blistering 1 minute 27.924. Outside of him on the front row will be Russell Clayson with a 28.178. Third will be Steve Brown with a 28.3. Andre Trago also with a 28.3. Fifth will be Alexis Molina with a 28.4. And sixth will be Jason Breifogel with a 28.6. Our seventh place starter will be Nicholas Bailey, also on a 128. Eighth will be German Afanador. Ninth, Jonathan Auger. 10th, Tim Brokaw, recently back to the Mustangs. And our final GS car will be Arthur Hermont in 11th place.
Meanwhile, it looks like the MX-5s in the ST class have completed their laps now. So, Richard, why don't you run us down what the grid looks like in that class?
Certainly, Joe. Well, at the top of the leaderboard, we have James Stevenson with a 1 minute 33.292. He's followed by Antti Tuominen with a 1:33.7. So there's about half a second there, which is quite strange. I didn't expect James Stevenson to be that much faster in the competition. Third is our old friend Arthur Chan. Welcome back to Arthur. He's been out of it for a little while. Then Stefan Overgaard is in fourth place with a 1:34.1. And our own Ayrton Ellis with a 1:34.2 is in fifth place. They are then followed by Dexter Castro, Chris Moran, Stefan Morien, Elliot Huffman, who is a known fast driver. He's in there in 1, 2, 3, 4, about 10th place. Chuck Johnson, Ed Voras, William Randleman, a little way down, Matthew Reinhold, Joshua Lutz, Stephen Asbury, Hang Ho Tower, an unusual, very much a rear position for him. And David Wamond brings up the rear, Joe.
Yeah, there's a few guys out of position. I see that Ayrton Ellis is a little farther down than what he's been showing lately as far as his pace goes. And Elliot Huffman is a little farther down as well than I expected. But it's definitely good to have Arthur Chan back, although from what I understand, he has a very interesting setup with his wheel and laptop.
Yeah, and we hope he has a good race today, as I see them on the grid now, getting ready for the pace car to take him round, bearing in mind that this is a rolling start. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to Hang Ho Tao. He's a bit further back than we would expect there, but it's going to be an intense race. One person I'd like to mention really quickly is Stefan Overgaard. Everybody will remember some of the bad luck that he had, particularly at Road Atlanta, when everything froze up on him and he hit the wall with huge force and wrecked his race. He's sitting in fourth place in qualifying at this point, Joe, and we hope that he has a good race, being the fact that he is a teammate of mine as well.
Yeah, it really surprised me when I looked at the point standings in the championship and saw that he was in second, because after all his problems, it seemed like he'd be farther down, even though he has a fair chunk of points to make up. But you know, Stevenson isn't out of the woods yet. He's got to keep pressing hard and not make mistakes. As we saw last season rather, you know, every little thing can come back and bite you. And he lost it in the final round because of mistakes and bad luck and just, you know, little things going wrong throughout and eating into his points. But they're heading out on the pace lap right now. The pace car is leading them around. Let's make picks real quick. Kevin, who's your pick in GS and ST for the win?
Well, I think Grand Sports, it will be Dan Rash. I think he's probably just going to be a little too consistent for everybody else. He's pretty good with that balance, and so I think he's the car of the day today.
And Richard, who do you think in the ST class is going to top the times?
Well, if I may, I'd like to say in the GS class, my sentimental favorite is Steve Brown. I really hope he has a really good race, and I'd like to see him have a win as well. In the ST class, it's hard to go past James Stevenson. He's got a half a second break on the pack in qualifying, so he's looking good, Joe.
Yeah, I think he's looking pretty incredible right now, truth be told. Amjad, what's your pick?
Yeah, in ST, I mean, Stevenson and Tumen obviously the best in the field. But don't be surprised with Arthur Chan, even though he's got this interesting setup. If he can hang on to the graph, he's got a shot.
Absolutely, we've seen that at a couple tracks. If you can just tuck in behind that faster car, you can really be a threat throughout the race and snipe them at the end. As far as my pick goes, you know, I'm going to have to say that Russell Clayson is one of those guys that can surprise, and especially with his deep braking. And I'm going to go for a bit of a dark horse. I'm going to say Ayrton Ellis in the ST. However, we are coming around, get ready for the start. Kevin, would you like to call the start with the GS class?
Will do gladly. So we see that the pace car has formed them up. All the GS drivers are finally getting to position, although Arthur Hermont's kind of trailing in the back. So the pace car dies off. Dan Rash is it's taking control of the field as they slowly move down. Green lights are on, so the field goes away. Rash has got a good start. Steve Brown is tucking in on the inside. Looks like Russell Place is going to try and make an early move back to the inside as Dan Rash moves out, and they're very close through turn 1, but they're getting through cleanly. Well done, and cleanly through turns 2. Joe?
And back to the ST class start, James Stevenson leaves them off. It looks like Arthur Chan had a very good start, but Stevenson covers him off. In the meantime, on the outside, Antti is going to fall back in second. Arthur Chan is back into third as they come into 2, and it's getting very tight through there. It looks like I don't see any accidents going on, Richard. Oh, I take that back. It looks like Hang Hotel had a bit of a wobble.
Yes, at this point in time, James Stevenson's leading them. Ayrton Ellis makes a move just there on Stefan Overgaard, but decides that discretion is the better part of valor and falls back into line. So we've got James Stevenson followed by Antti Tuominen. Arthur Chan made a terrific start, as was mentioned, and he's in third place with Stefan Overgaard in fourth place. So very, very early days in this 90-minute race. So we'll see how it all pans out as time goes on, Joe.
Oh,
and we have a spinner out of turn 8.
Yep, and that is Jason Breifogel, who has lost a number of positions. It looks like he's moved to the very back, but he should get away in time to get ahead of the ST cars. Speaking of which, James Stevenson continues to lead with a fair gap ahead of Antti Tuominen in second. Arthur Chan is holding third, Stefan Overgaard fourth, and Ayrton is fifth. And we've got a yellow flag.
Well, that's unfortunate. A very, very early caution. That's probably because of the Jason Breifogel incident, was it?
No, it was for the Ed Verse in ST went off the grass in turn 8 and collected a bunch of curls.
And we're looking at the replay of that now, and it looks like under braking for turn 8, he just lost it, went through the grass, and he got collected by, it looks like, Josh Leutz, and couldn't quite see who the other car was.
Yeah, so everybody is still in ST. Certainly they're racing at this point in time still to catch up with the GS class. But that's unfortunate, Joe. Really early caution. Not what we wanted to see, I guess.
Yeah, it looks like it was Chuck Johnson who was the other car collected in that accident. Not the way that that we wanted to start that at all, Richard. But so less than a lap down, and we're already behind the pace car once again. And Dan Rash is currently leading the GS class. Russell Clayson holds on to second. Steve Brown in third. Andre Trago is in fourth. And then Alexis Molina is in fifth. What are the top 5 in ST looking like, Amjad?
All right, in ST, we've got Stevenson up at the front, followed by Tuominen, Chan, Overgaard, and Ellis.
So it seems like nothing has actually changed in the top 5 in either class, if I recall correctly. But in the meantime, it was actually a relatively clean start for turn 1 and 2. I was a bit surprised that most everybody managed to keep it as clean as they did, Kevin.
Well, I'll disagree with you. I kind of expected everybody to be really cautious, knowing that it's a tricky complex, and with a rolling start, you're not quite up to speed. So I'm glad to see that they got through it just fine, although unfortunately that didn't last long.
Yeah, I know you say that everybody, you would expect to be a little wary, but I just know from experience that even the best wariness can still be caught out by someone doing something that you didn't expect. But still, good on all these guys to really show themselves to be, what is one of the best and cleanest leagues out there. And we're obviously not going to be seeing anybody really hop into the pits this early on. But what is the pit strategy going to be looking like on the GS side, Kevin?
Well, we think they're going to be able to go just a little bit more than halfway just on green fuel. This yellow flag early on probably won't change the strategy at all, so I suspect that probably drivers will stay out, and then once we past the halfway point, they'll hope for a yellow flag within a first couple of laps, and if they don't, they'll just go to fuel, and should be a pretty straightforward strategy sequence right now, I think.
What about on the ST side, Amjad? How long do we expect these guys to be able to go?
Well, if this went green flag all the way through, would see about an hour. I do see a couple of drivers, including Joshua Lutz and Elliot Huffman, taking a splash, but we'll see how much that affects them.
Yeah, Elliot Huffman, I didn't expect to see in, but it could pay dividends later on down the line to be able to fill up less fuel to make it to the end. Josh Lloyd, however, was probably repairing some of the damage that he incurred from being involved in that accident on the first lap. We're still kind of cycling around, although is the lights on the pit car or on the pace car off? I can't quite see. They are, in fact, off. So, looks like we should be going back to green this time. Bye, guys.
Yeah, I think, Joe, maybe the early caution is a good thing in the sense that the drivers' nerves are now settled. They've had a lap or two around the track. So maybe that will, settle everything down and we can go to a very long green flag stint now.
Absolutely. And, the other thing about that is that it's a lot easier to start single file than double file, especially in the first corner of this track. So hopefully this will prove itself to be just a little bit more fortuitous and helpful to these guys getting through completely clean. They're coming around on the back stretch right now and are getting close to the getting the green. Now they're going by that pit entry currently that you can see on the right side, or I'm sorry, the driver's left really. And it's a bit of an unusual pit entry. If they don't enter on that access lane, they will get a black flag. So keep an eye on that as you watch this race go on, because if you see anybody enter way late, they are going to pay for it later. As they come around, the pace car should be diving in any second now as they come to the final pit entry. And there it goes right now. So Dan Rash is going to lead them away, and we are on lap 3, currently getting ready to start lap 4. Green flag comes out, and it's a very slow start. Steve Brown got a little bit of a jump on Russell Clayson, but too much so he had to check up. He's looking on the outside of Russell, who stays defensive, but there's nothing doing there. They're heading into turn 2. Russell goes defensive once again, but Steve isn't anywhere near to take advantage of it. It looks like Arthur Hermont is able to get inside of Tim Brokaw, though. And Antti Tuominen was threatening on the outside of James Stevenson, Richard.
Lots of action in ST class. We had on the restart, we had Ayrton Ellis making a big move.
I'm sorry
on,
to interrupt, but there's a change
Stefan
for the
Overgaard. He decided that he would go through with it, but in the meantime, Dexter Castro moved on both of those, and he has now overtaken both Ayrton Ellis and Stefan Overgaard, and is currently sitting in about 4th place as they go into that. Oh my goodness, that is that's put Stefan Overgaard out in the weeds a little bit there. Hopefully he's recovered. So it's action in the ST class, Joe.
A whole lot of action. There was a battle for first between Tuominen and Stevenson, but there's also a battle going on between Dexter Castro and Arthur Chan. Dexter gave a shove to the rear end of Arthur and took the spot from him, but now Arthur is back on the inside of him through turn 8 and takes a spot back. He's going to be vulnerable on the straight with the draft, but I bet you Dexter's probably got some front-end damage after he had a fairly hard slam into the back of Arthur there.
Well, that's unfortunate, but I have to say, Joe, what else is new?
Dexter is not known in this series for his clean driving, that is for sure. He just lost a spot to his teammate Ayrton Ellis, who slots between him and Arthur, and this is currently for, let's see what spot that is. That is 6th, 5th, and 4th. And Ayrton is looking on the outside of Arthur as they heading turn 1. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to have that. He's still holding on the outside. He dips some wheels into the grass, but he holds onto it. Oh, and he makes contact with both Arthur and Dexter. Now he's off the course, and there's another car behind him that goes off. He's able to rejoin safely, it looks like, as they come to 3, but they're 3 wide now, and he makes contact once again with another teammate in 49. That's Hang Hotel, and Ayrton continues to move down the field. He lost a whole lot of spots. He's going to have a lot to make up for this time, Richard.
Yeah, that was pretty frantic there. I think that Ayrton was the big loser out of all of that. Obviously, he made contact with a number of guys, but they've got to settle down, Joe. This is far too early to be getting into these sorts of battles.
Absolutely. Oh, and see, Tim Brokaw was off on the track for some reason. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. What's going on in GS, Kevin?
Well, it's been pretty straightforward until we caught Tim Brokaw spinning. Nobody's making any moves right now. Dan Rash has pulled a little bit of a gap over Russell Clayson and Steve Brown. And I got to mention, Steve Brown's doing something that's pretty unusual to me. He's braking a little deeper than Russell Clayson.
Interesting turn of events there. And I see Ayrton Ellis going slow once again for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on there. He might have some damage from his side-to-side contact earlier on. Amjad, you'll have to keep us abreast of what's going on. In the meantime, let us know how that battle's going in GS, Kevin.
And just now, oh dear, Russell Clayson has blipped out. He may have lost internet connection as he pops back in, but he was very much on the inside of turn 3, and I feared that he might spin it and lose it through the turn 3-4 complex, but he has regathered it, and looks like his connection's doing okay right now as he's driving. But Steve Brown is very much on his heels right now, as they're probably trying to hang on to Dan Rash's draft on the banking.
Let's stay with that battle. In the meantime, back farther, I noticed that Jonathan Auger was having some trouble. He was off course and was sliding all around. But let's stick with this battle that's going on up front. And Steve Brown, as you said, is very, very close for that third place in GS and constantly threatening on Russell. As we watch this, what's the battles looking like in ST, Richard?
Joe, I've been watching the point there with roundabout where Ayrton Ellis is. He had some some tough times there with his car, hard to handle. I'm telling you that the entry into turns 1 and 2, everybody's mentioned it before, but that's where all the action is. I don't think these guys have got it nailed quite yet, because it's pretty sketchy when they go down into that turn 1-2 complex, Joe.
Yeah, and I just want to mention, I'm looking up at the front of the ST. Antti Tuominen is holding on to the back of James Stevenson thanks to this draft, it looks like. And we saw him do this 2 weeks ago at Road America, where he hung on, and any chance he got, he hassled that Australian and tried to take that first position away. I think it's time that we're going to see this once again from Antti.
Well, I'm looking at it right now, and Antti is not far behind James. But just looking at both of them, their entry into turn 1 and 2 just there was pretty good. So these guys, if anybody has managed to tame turn 1 and 2, it must be these two guys, Joe.
Absolutely, and I'm hearing some yelling from William Randleman on the radio. Amjad, do you know what happened back there?
No, right now I'm looking at Moran. He spun once and it's just now spun again. He's losing a lot of positions from 6 in ST.
And Joe,
did I see Chris Moran on the grass just there on the exit to turn 2?
And also a quick report, I looked back and it looked like William Randleman had contact with Ayrton Ellis, actually.
And we do have a change in the podium for GS as it just changes again. Russell Clayson had gone deep under braking for turn 6 and allowed Steve Brown to duck underneath him. But now Steve Brown got loose on turn 8 and allowed Russell Clayson to take the position back. And Steve Brown has dropped down to 6th position right now.
That's going to hand third place to Andre Trego, who's looking pretty handy, but they're already shuffling through some ST traffic. I see Josh Leutz in the mix there. As Richard would say, it is all happening right now. It's a lot to keep track of. And there's still complaining going on over the radio. William Randall is extremely unhappy with Ayrton Ellis, it seems. So we'll have to maybe talk to one or two of them.
Yeah, Ellis got back in the random and going into turn 1 and basically punted him off into the grass.
Yeah, I think, Joe, that Ayrton is trying way too hard at the moment. He's made contact with several drivers now. That's not the way to be doing it, especially in a 90-minute race. It's crazy stuff.
I want to hop to GS real quick because there's currently a battle going on for 3rd and 4th. Andre Trego is under threat from Alexis Molina, who is on the outside of turn 8. Tries to outbrake him, but he's not quite close enough. He's going to slot in behind, and behind them, it looks like, what is that? That's German Vanador. And Steve Brown, who are also closing on the tail of these cars. And now Alexis Molina is using the draft. He's once again right up behind Andre Trego, looking for that 3rd position. He is currently looking around the outside of that banked portion of 10 and 11, which is usually NASCAR 3 and 4. But it looks like the outside is not the way to go. He drops back once again. Is he going to have a chance coming up to 1, Kevin? Looks like the draft is pulling him in once again.
Could be, but this is a very tough place to pass, and yeah, it looks like Molina's going to live to fight another day as they come into the very deceptive turn, too. Everybody's kind of trying to gather their cars still.
And Steve Brown went all the way off into the grass and managed to hold on to it. German Afandador, in the meantime, is looking on the back of Alexis Molina, and there's no place by in turn 4, but he still holds on to the back of that green and white car, and they're now going to space out as they come towards turn 6.
And this is the really the best passing opportunity for the Mustangs right here. This is a very slow entry on this complex before they lead onto this fast back straight.
And you'll see some guys probably make some interesting dives into there, maybe try and make some brave moves. So let's, as we continue to watch this battle, I just want to check back with Richard. Is there anything going on in ST?
No, at this point, Joe, we've got James Stevenson with a fairly comfortable lead over Antti Tuominen in second place. They followed by Arthur Chan. He's doing really, really well, but he is a little way back in third place from Antti, so seems to be settling down, which I, for one, think is a good thing, Joe.
Especially for our vocal cords. So let's hop back up to GS and try and catch up with that battle that was going on. Kevin, it looks like Alexis is still trying to threaten Andre, but he's not close enough this time.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm not really sure where Alexis is going to be able to make a move. He doesn't really seem to be quicker than Andre Trego in any particular part of the track, so that's going to be a tough maneuver for him. Maybe his best bet right now is just try and stay behind him and hope for some action when they catch up onto the ST, when they finally start lapping those cars. But the guy that's kicking himself right now is Steve Brown. He's behind in that little group, and I think he's faster than these guys, but he just doesn't have a way around them right now.
Yeah, I was watching Steve, and he closed way up on German Afandador under braking for 3. In fact, he does it again for 6. So he seems to be a little bit of a Russell Clayson behind these guys, but just can't seem to capitalize on it.
And guys, I'm just noticing that Tim Brokaw is way back in amongst the ST class. So obviously he had some problems early. He's just trying to make his way through the ST drivers to get back on the tail of the GS class there, Kevin.
Yeah, and I think you just saw Alexis Molina get very loose coming out of turn 8 and 9 to get onto the back straight. Looks like he got onto the power just a little bit too early, and that hampered him for this run. But it looks like Steve Brown's got a good run on German Afandador. I'm not quite sure if it's close enough to make a move as they approach into turn 1, but we'll have to see what he can do, because I think Steve Brown really needs to get in front of this pack of guys, because I think they're slowing him down.
If he's really brave, and he's closing very fast. He does look on the inside of German Afandador, and German gives up the ghost before they enter 1, deciding it's way too early in the race to fight a faster car. So Steve Brown works his way back into the top 5 after an early mistake, and he goes off, almost comes into German Afandador as he re-enters, but he holds on to it. German is looking on the inside through 3, but that's going to be the outside for 4, and so he has to slot back into place, so he can't quite get the spot back. But Steve Brown is trying to make up for that early mistake and get back up to the front and keep his championship hopes alive there, Kevin.
Yeah, and he's definitely driving a little more aggressively than I'm used to seeing him. He's sliding that car around a lot. He's being really late on the brakes and trying to carry a lot of speed in, and that's a little atypical from what we see from Steve. He's usually a very calm, reserved driver, but I think he's pretty mad at himself right now for giving up that second place and wants to get back up there as quickly as he can, because Dan Rash is on a charge right now with a 4-second lead over Russell Clayson last time by.
Well, our two old friends, William Randleman and Ayrton Ellis, are back together, and that is in 11th and 12th. Ayrton is again behind William, and he's closing up for turn 1, but he decides to back off. Doesn't think he's going to get by there. They're coming into 2 now. Let's see what happens under braking. Ayrton continues to hold station. I think, Richard, as you mentioned, he's finally just starting to calm down and let the red mist go and not just be charging through the field.
Yes, and at this point, just further up the field in front of them, we've got Arthur Chan and Stefan Overgaard, who are battling as they go down that long straightaway, heading towards the oval. Last time by, Stefan was not as close as he is now, so it's going to be interesting to see as they get onto the oval section how he deals with Arthur Chan, if he can make a move on him or not, Joe.
And this is for the final podium position for fourth and third between these two guys. Up in front of them, let's stay with this battle, but just wanted to mention Antti Tuominen continues to hold second, and James Stevenson is starting to run away with first. But yeah, I see that Stefan is keeping just a hold on to Arthur. Hasn't been able to quite threaten yet. He's a little far back, but you'll see just how powerful this draft is probably as he closes, and you'll see coming towards one, he's probably going to get within at least 2 or 3 car lengths. Yeah, just being sucked right into that orange and white car, but not close enough to do anything under braking, Richard.
Yeah, this is the way it was on the previous lap, so at this point in time, I think he's feeling Arthur out and seeing, you know, it's good to sit behind somebody and watch them and see what their strengths and weaknesses are, where they might be faster than you and where you may be faster than them. So he's feeling Arthur out at the moment, and I expect him to make a challenge later on in the race, Joe.
And in the meantime, Dexter Castro had a spin coming out of turn 8. He's now back to 9th in ST.
Not a good day so far for Dexter Castro. Probably want to clean up his act and try and get this thing back pointed the right direction. But so a lot of action seems to be going on in ST now that GS is somewhat quieted down. Let's actually hop back real quick, or at least mention what's going on in GS class. Oh, and I see another car off in ST real quick. That's Elliot Huffman. Sorry to be jumping around so much. What does it look like in GS, Kevin?
Well, Dan Rash still has about a 4-second lead over Russell Clayson, but Steve Brown has kind of gotten his car back together, and he is right on the bumper of Alexis Molina and has been carrying quite a bit more speed than Alexis into all the tight corners here. And so I suspect he's going to try and make a move on Alexis very soon here, because I think he is the much faster car right now.
It definitely seems to be that way. And Richard made a very good point, something that endurance racing lends itself very well to, is making this a chess game. Playing patient and watching your enemies, well, I guess you could say enemies, your competitors, strategy, the way they drive, and just, you know, shaping them up before you decide to do anything. I guess you could call them frenemies, as our director is saying. But watching Steve Brown right now, and he's not quite close enough. In fact, he pulls out of the draft of Alexis, which is interesting as they come down the front stretch.
Action in ST. They go 3 wide, and Ayrton Ellis once again loses out in that position. In that battle there, and he lost out to William Randleman. And there was also Dan Rash in the middle of all of that. So but he is in the wars today, poor old Ayrton.
Yeah, this is very different from his previous, or at least his first 2 races back. And Elliot Huffman is closing way up on William Randleman. William decides to give him room coming through turn 6, and lets him, doesn't quite let him by. He's still holding him off. He's going to have the inside on the next corner. Who got the better exit, though? Looks like William Randleman is slightly faster, so he's going to pull back in line. Elliot Huffman's got to make up for that early spin. And is he going to be brave enough to try and tuck in through 8? Nope, he's going to hold line and wait for the draft. Probably a good strategic move, Amjad.
A little bit scary when you see you're in a battle with another car in your class, and along comes a Dan Rash behind you. That can scare the hell out of you, Joe.
Very much so, and you have to really know your competitors and know who you're dealing with, because you have to be aware, is this someone who's going to try and chuck it in there, or is this someone who's going to be able to bide their time and wait for a better opportunity? And I see that Elliot Huffman is coming up on William Randleman once again and goes around the outside of turn 1. Is he going to be able to hold it off the grass? He does. William Randleman almost loses it. Gets a little squirrely, but gets it slowed down for 2 and safely through, but he's lost a spot to Elliot Huffman.
And Steve Brown's making a move on the inside of Alexis Molina into turn 3, and I think he's got it.
Yeah, that is... That is right behind where we were. But yeah, Alexis did a great job of holding him off there. Excellent driving. Ayrton Ellis is going to move out of the way for these 2 guys to get by. It's going to be a little closer, Steve Brown. And he breaks enough for him to get by. Steve Brown closes way up to Alexis Molina in turn 6. They've got more traffic coming in front of them. How is this going to play into it, Kevin?
This is a tough spot because you absolutely want the best exit out of turn 8 that you can get for the long run around the banking. But if there's an MX-5 in your way, that can really hamper your braking duties, as it looks like they're going to get cleanly by Randleman. Steve Brown's going to take the chance to make a move on Alexis Molina onto the inside of 8, and they're going to get on the power as quick as they can. They've got another MX-5 directly in front of them, but Steve Brown's going to be on the inside on the low line for the banking. So I think, no, he's going to tuck in behind Alexis Molina. So this will continue for another corner.
I cannot believe that Steve Brown got that car slowed down. I think it's only by the grace of Alexis Molina giving him just a little bit more room on the inside, because I thought for sure he had lost control and just was going to run into the Spaniard. But he's going to get another chance as they come towards 1. Is he going to look at the inside? Alexis Molina is going to give him the spot, and he backs out of it and lets Steve go by. Kevin?
Yeah, Steve's just being an absolute demon under braking right now, but I'll agree with you. I think Alexis Molina probably gave him a little bit of room there because Steve Brown went very deep into that corner. So let's see if Steve Brown can kind of maneuver past away from Alexis Molina and catch up to Andre Trego for that final podium spot.
He's making his way back up through the GS after that very early mistake. Real quick, I want to go through the top 5 in each class. In GS class, Dan Rash continues to lead. Russell Clayson is in second still, and Andre Trego has third to round out the podium. Then behind them, Steve Brown has just taken over fourth spot, and Alexis Molina is in fifth. What does ST look like, Richard?
Well, James Stevenson is leading by a very, very healthy margin over Antti Tuominen. It's about 6 seconds. Further back in third place, it's Arthur Chan, and Arthur is well back from Antti as well. So Arthur is 4 seconds back from Antti. Then we've got Stefan Overgaard in fourth place, and bringing up the fifth place is somebody that we haven't actually mentioned, and that is Stefan Morien, who's quietly made his way through and is now in fifth place, Joe.
And you see the GS cars going around the outside of the STs. And for those who are new to multi-class racing, especially with Rovals, the GS cars are ordered to take the outside line, ST are ordered to take the inside. So that is why you see them always going around the outside of these slower cars. In the meantime, I'm looking and I see Hang Ho Tao closing up on Stefan Morien actually for 6th and 5th. We mentioned earlier Hang Ho Tao was way far down, but I guess through just clean driving, he's slotted all the way up almost to the top 5 here.
Well, he's in 6th place at the moment. Both he and Stefan Morien were further back in the start of the race, but there was such a lot of action going on amongst the guys in front of them that they've just quietly moved forward. As we see one of the GS cars coming up on Hang Ho Tower, and he has a bit of a bobble in front of Hang. That could have been interesting, but this is a scary time, a very scary time for if you're an ST driver, because all of these GS cars are just coming up one by one onto you, and you've just got to keep an eye in your mirrors all the time so that you don't get in their way, because they are very much faster than you, particularly on the oval section, Joe.
Absolutely. And we've got pit window getting very close on this. We got about 10 more minutes before these cars can probably hop in there, at least if it stays green for the rest of this time. And well, I'm not sure. It could still go green because we've had clean racing here before, but as we've seen, it can be extremely tricky, and the guys seem to be quite feisty today. I don't see too many terribly close battles going on in GS, Kevin.
No, the closest one right now is between Steve Brown and Alexis Molina, where these guys are still going at it. Steve Brown got a little bit away from Alexis Molina, but last time by in turn 8 he got a little loose on exit, and that allowed Alexis Molina to catch back up to Steve Brown. So these guys are trying to move forward as well as they can, but so are the other drivers, and our overall leader, Dan Rash, has just been flawless so far, as he has almost a 6-second lead over second place Russell Clayson.
And as we were watching, we saw Andre Trego get quite loose going into 6, and that hurt him. Steve Brown is catching very rapidly as they come towards turn 8.
Yeah, Steve Brown's just been fantastic in the infield. He's got this car just absolutely dialed in right now compared to the guys around him. So he's being a very aggressive driver right now in the hopes that he can move forward.
And it looks like he's gotten close enough to catch the draft of Andre Trego, so this is probably going to be his best chance. It looks like he's closing in on the back straightaway. They're heading into the oval portion of 10 and 11. So we'll see if he makes another first lap, or I'm sorry, first turn pass here coming up. He's getting ever closer. He's got about a car length and a half between him and Trago. Is he going to make a look? No, he's a little too far back. In fact, Trago goes a little defensive, interestingly. But Steve Brown backs off as they come towards 2 under braking, and maybe he can make a move on this infield that he seems to be so good at right now.
Yeah, and it definitely helps Steve Brown that they're catching these ST cars in front of them. This seems to be the best chance to make a move is when the Mustangs are having to adjust their line around an ST car. That seems to help out the driver behind as he's able to adjust. So maybe Steve Brown will be able to take advantage of this.
And this is something that we didn't see 2 weeks ago because the laps were so long. As Steve Brown looks on the inside coming through 6, and Trago gets a bad exit, and it's a done deal before they're even through turn 7. So Steve Brown does a good job of getting away there with a very opportunistic pass.
And it looks like Alexis Molina's popping on the inside for 8. Maybe he's going to try and make a move here. And no, he's going to bail out of that as Andre Trago went very, very deep under braking. And Alexis Molina is going to get that spot. So in 2 corners, Andre Trago drops 2 positions from one simple mistake.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how flawless you need to be competitive in this series. But I have to give credit to Trago. I think he knew what was going on there. If he didn't, we probably would have seen an accident because he was getting a little squirrely and getting very close to Steve. Although Andre Trago is going to try and come back in Alexis Molina as they come through turns 10 and 11.
And looks like Trago got a good run out of the draft, and I think, is he going to move to the inside? He's looking, but no, he's going to stay under braking, stay behind Alexis Molina, as Steve Brown gets very close to dropping some wheels on the approach to turn 2.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Richard?
I was going to say that there's been a change. You'll remember that Arthur Chan was ahead of Stefan Overgaard. That has now changed. Stefan Overgaard is now in 3rd place. This happened a couple of laps ago into turn 1 and 2 when Stefan made the move on Arthur Chan, and he's taken over the 3rd spot now, Joe.
Good stuff from Stefan Overgaard. And I was going to mention a little bit earlier, Richard, one thing that we didn't see a lot of at Road America because of the long lap times and the very long straightaways is the 2 classes really tangling and using one another as picks and things like that. And it seems like the infield portion is way more conducive to these guys using one another to be able to try and sneak by someone when they're not expecting it.
That's right. It's very early on in the race where you see the GS class getting into the STs, so that mixes things up a lot. So, you know, I mentioned it earlier, you really have to keep if you're an ST driver, you've got to keep an eye on those mirrors because, you know, as you see Arthur Chan now, you just see a GS driver blowing by both him and Stefan Overgaard on the oval section. So, got to keep a heads up and be aware of what's happening around you, Joe.
Always, always, always. Focus is so important in this series. And, whoa, I see Alexis Molina going off, actually, in the GS class and giving Andre Trago the position back. So I think there was just a lot of traffic going on, and Alexis took evasive action there. I'm not totally sure. But that will move Andre Trago, where is that? Back up into 4th place, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks to me like Alexis Molina just got a little startled by the ST car of Ed Verras. Looks like Verras kind of tried to bail out of turn 1 to let the field go by him, and that interrupted the timing of Molina, which is very easy for the Mustangs to do. There's a very narrow turn-in window for them into turn 1, and if they're busy looking at an ST car or another Mustang, it's very easy to just drive way past your turn-in point.
The action here, guys, between Dexter Castro and Hang Ho Tao. They nose to tail. Dexter's had a look on the inside through turns 1 and 2. Didn't do anything there. He's now looking once again into Hang Ho Tower as they come into turn 6. What will happen here? He looks to the inside. Hang Ho fends him off a little bit. He's going to make another try into 8 perhaps. Let's see what happens there, Joe.
It looks like Elliot Huffman got a much better run than Dexter Castro coming out of 7 there. So he's on the outside as they head towards 8. I don't think, unless he outbrakes him, he's going to be able to do anything. But he could do an over-under. Dexter Castro breaks way late. Is he going to have a better exit? Looks like Elliot Huffman got a very good exit, so the draft is also going to help him. All Dexter has to do, though, is stay to the inside, and Elliot pulls up right on the bumper of Dexter, so he doesn't make a move. He lifts off. He's not actually probably bump drafting, because that's not very effective in these cars, but he's just holding on right onto the back of Dexter's MX-5, and backs off just a little bit as they come through the corner, because you don't want to be blocking your view too much. And Dexter's starting to get the draft of Hang Ho Tao as they're coming around. Now, Hang Ho and Dexter are both teammates, so they're probably going to be working together a little bit more. And I'm sorry, Elliot Huffman looks to the inside.
Contact between Castro and Huffman, and Huffman gets the better of both Hang Ho Tao and Dexter Castro into turns 1 and 2, Joe.
Yeah, Hang went way off, and behind them, Ayrton Ellis's bad day continues to get worse. He also goes off in sympathy. So Ayrton seems to be having a little bit of trouble with this track. After such a great performance in the previous season, seems to be having a bit of a bogey track this season.
Yeah, he's not having a happy time at the moment, but it's a long race. We're coming up to the 40-minute mark in the race now, so we're not even halfway yet. These guys have got a long way to go still, as Ayrton Ellis makes a move on Hang Ho Tao. Is on the inside now. Will Hang hold him off? No, Ayrton seems to have taken the position, but Hang is on the inside for the turn into 8 as they come onto the oval. Let's see what happens here, Joe. It seems to me that they side by side. Hang Ho breaks a little earlier than Ayrton Ellis, so he's decided discretion is the better part of valor, as we always say, and has given the spot to Ayrton, Joe.
That was excellent driving from Ayrton. He gave him almost no room, but the two of them managed to keep clean. So good stuff and very fair driving from each of them. That moves Ayrton Ellis, I believe, up into the 8th position. Elliot Huffman has benefited the most. He's moved all the way up to 6th, and he was 8th last time by, if I am reading this correctly.
I just want to break in, because now the pit window is now open, as Alexis Molina in GS has already taken 4,000. Unfortunately, has had at least one full spin and a couple of half spins on his outlap.
Well, I'm not as familiar with how the cold tires perform, Kevin. Maybe you could enlighten us a little bit on how those cars behave fresh off of pit stops?
Well, if he did not take tires, yeah, that can definitely change the balance of the car. They do cool off quite a bit from the hot state, and they can feel very, very greasy your first couple of corners on that. So I'm a little surprised if he did not take fresh tires, since it's pretty easy to chew up the right front on this corner on this track with the banking.
Yeah, Molina took all 4 tires.
Well, then I officially don't know. I'm very confused by that. That's a little strange.
So maybe the jitters are getting the better of the Spaniard. And we have to give credit for Alexis Molina doing so good. I mean, even though it's not, it doesn't affect your driving ability per se, this is obviously an English-speaking series, and Alexis Molina's native language is not English, and he's still learning, but he's done an excellent job of being able to follow rules and understand the marshals and everything. So definitely want to give a lot of credit to him for all the effort he's been putting into this. I've tried to learn foreign languages, and it's not something I'd want to try to do while driving a car. But in the meantime, Dan Rash is continuing to hold on to the lead in the GS class and overall. Russell Clayson has been trying to hunt him down, but it's not been very effective because he's 11 seconds back last time by. Steve Brown is another 3 seconds back in 3rd. And I'm hearing that Arthur Chan is pitting, Amjad.
Yes, he's the first one to blink in ST at the front, so he's in from 4th, taking all 4 tires.
Yeah, just watching him at the moment there. Look, as he comes out of the pits right now, James Stevenson, I've been watching James Stevenson and Antti and Stefan. There are huge gaps between those 3. So James Stevenson doing it really, really comfortably at the moment, Joe.
I'm sure that's the way he'd want it, just to be able to run away with this thing and not have to worry about anybody else. It seems pretty chaotic as it is. In fact, it's settled down quite a bit. I'm going through the field on the ST guys, and I'm not seeing too many close battles, although I do see Hang Ho Tao has just been passed by Chris Moran, and he's even got Matthew Reinhold threatening behind him.
Well, yes, and in front of them we have Ayrton, who is coming up onto the back of Dexter Castro. So let's see what happens here. I believe that these guys will be thinking about pitting now anyway, so we'll keep an eye on these guys. As I see somebody going into the pits there. Who is that?
Amjad, have you spotted who else is diving in?
Yeah, Moran's diving in right now, and Elliot Huffman has taken his second pit stop of the race.
So things probably not going the way Elliot Huffman wanted. He's currently scored in 12th. I'm not entirely sure if that's correct at the moment. We'll get you info on that. But in the meantime, I will expect to see more MX-5s tend to pit soon, because early pit stops seem to be the order of the day typically in those cars, and I don't think we'll see James Stevenson wait too long, Richard.
Yeah, at the moment, Chris Moran's in the pits, and behind him, Stefan Morien. They're taking 4 tires, so they're doing their pit stop. This is on cue for them, so with a bit of luck, they'll be able to go all the way through to the end of the race. I reckon these 2 guys are in a good position pitting right now, Joe.
And guys, Russell Clayson has spun in turn 2 as Steve Brown is in pit lane, so the order in the GS is going to change in some fashion here.
So Russell Clayson obviously is going to lose a significant amount of time there, but it's hard to see what's going to go on. Has he been in the pits yet, Amjad?
No, Russell Clayson has not stopped yet.
All right, so we'll have to wait and see until Russell pits to be able to really figure out if he lost enough for Steve Brown. All he has to do is lose about 4 seconds, if I recall right. And in the meantime, Dan Rash, I don't believe, has pitted yet either, so he continues to extend his gap. Behind them, German Afandador. Actually, I see a very close battle going on between German Afandador and Nicholas Bailey, and that's for 5th and 4th at the moment.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on this for the last few laps. These guys are very matched right now. German Afandador, I think on the last lap, did get a little bit of a gap, but Nicholas Bailey kind of reeled him back in. So I'm not sure who's the quicker car right now, but I think it's probably to their advantage right now that these guys are drafting each other and probably going a little bit quicker together than they would on their own.
Very much so, and it could, you know, if you are behind a faster car, you could possibly save fuel if you really wanted to, if you didn't fancy trying to get dicey at the point in the race that you're in. But I would kind of keep an eye on, half an eye on Russell Clayson and Steve Brown, and see when Russell goes in to figure out what's going on there. Whoa, and
guys, can I break in here? James Stevenson, our leader in ST class, is just entering the pits.
So ST leader is now taking his 1 pit stop of the race, hopefully 1, barring any big accidents going on for him. So I don't think it was close enough for anybody to jump him. Antti Tuominen is going by right now as he comes through turn 1. But unless there's something that goes seriously wrong for James in the pits, he's probably going to come out in first once all those pit stops cycle through. We see Arthur Hermont going in front of him right now.
That's right. So he's taken his 4 tires. He'll get his fuel topped up. Depends on how much fuel he takes. I think that's the only, thing that they can do is to gamble on fuel. But if I were any ST driver, and I suppose a GS driver as well, I'd be taking the full fuel load, because it doesn't make that much of a difference to the car's attitude, although it does save you time if you take a smaller fuel load. But if I've got a big lead like James has got, I'd just take a full fuel load and carry on where I left off, Joe.
Yeah, and with us being about 47 minutes left to go, I'd say a full load is probably smart here, since you do seem to eat up quite a bit of fuel. But if you wait till a little bit longer, I'd say might as well not top up, because you want to try and save some time in the pits. But in the meantime, let's go through and see if we can find ourselves a battle. Kevin, can you see anything in the GS class going on?
No, it's still kind of shaken as it was. Nothing too interesting. Nicholas Bailey did give up with his battle for German Afandador and is in pit lane right now. So these guys, it's a little confused right now as the pit cycles have started, and we're just going to have to see how it shakes out.
And
now,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the of the top guys, or in ST class, Antti Tuominen has not pitted yet, so I'm going to keep my camera on Antti and just see when he pits, guys.
And likewise, I'm still kind of keeping half an eye on Russell Clayson. And we're getting word that our pit bogey time is about 19 to 22 seconds.
Joe, our overall leader, Dan Rash, is in pit lane.
So Dan heading in for his pits, and Russell Clayson continues on around, doesn't hop into the pit entry lane. So he is going to do yet another lap. But as I was saying, GS pit times are about 19 to 22 seconds. So tack that on to the distance between these two cars if you're watching the stats on the ticker and whatnot as far as that goes. But things are starting to settle down, but at the same time, it's going a little bit crazy with all these pit stops, guys.
And I do want to point out that that was a smart move by Russell Clayson to stay out, because now that he has done that, he will have led a lap, and he'll get those bonus points in his hunt for the championship.
It's going to be close on this. He's going to have to stay out for yet one more lap, I think, unless he can get through the pit lane and go by the line, because it looks like he was scored as second, because Dan Rash did go by the line in the pit lane before Clayson was able to come around. But let's continue to kind of watch and make sure to see what's going on in the pit stops. Amjad will have to keep us informed on that. What's going on in ST? Are there any good battles going on in ST, Richard?
Hi Joe, at this point in time, not much happening. Everybody's holding station. I'm going to wait a lap or two until the pit stops shake out. The only interesting thing to me is when will anti-pit, because he's still out there and most everybody else have spitted already, Joe.
Well, I do see a train of cars going on here. It looks like for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And that is Chris Moran, Dexter Castro, Hang Hotel, and Ayrton Ellis. In fact, Ellis is looking on the inside of Hang Hotel right now, coming into 8th. And he sneaks inside under braking, makes a nice clean pass. And I think he's probably going to have that one done, except for the draft. Hang Hotel might want to come back, and that's going to actually lose him a bit of time from the cars ahead of them, which is Dexter and Chris. And Dexter's actually holding on to the back of Moran's car as well there.
And one of the train has entered the pits. Let's see who that might be.
Looks like it's David Wammond.
David Wammond, yes. So we've got a bit of a train happening here, Joe. So this is going to be interesting to watch. So let's see what happens. They're all on the oval going down towards turn 1. Ayrton Ellis charges into the oval, into turn 1, sorry. Ahead of him, Dexter Castro. Someone out on the grass there. Is that Stefan Overgaard? No, that's Chris Moran out on the grass. So he loses out 3 positions as all of these guys pass him just there, Joe.
Yeah, that's got to be heartbreaking when you do that, and when you make that one little mistake. It's just like Dan told us at the start, the Hoover, man. It's been sucking up cars all race. We've seen so many guys go off. But this is helping Ayrton Ellis, because he's made up 2 positions in less than a lap, and now he's looking at another one coming up on his teammate, which is Dexter Castro. And I wouldn't be surprised if 49 Motorsports has some team action going on, and he doesn't fight too hard to let Ayrton by.
Russell Claxton in the pits from the lead in GS.
So Russell has finally pitted. He did get the lead a lap bonus. Where is our leader Dan Rash, though, or overall leader so far? German Afadador has actually stayed out as well, so German is going to get a lead a lap bonus. And I see behind him Jason Breifogel has also pitted, but Dan Rash is cycling by these guys and is going to move up into second.
No. Oh, Jason Breifogel is in pit lane. Excuse me. Yes. So the only car still out is German Afadador, and it's all to go still.
And it sounds like we're getting ready to take a break as things start to settle out from the last of the pit stops. We'll join you back in a moment with the finish of the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series at Homestead, Miami. Welcome back to the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. We're on the final half of the 90 minutes at Homestead, Miami. We're currently watching an ST battle here. Chris Moran is trying to hold off Stefan Maurienne and Hang Ho Tao, and that is for 10th, 11th, or I'm sorry, 9th, 10th, and 11th. It's been a fierce battle. They went 4 wide along with Alexis Molina just a moment ago, so that was an interesting moment. Hang Ho Tao is looking on the inside of Stefan Maurienne actually right now. And he didn't get quite a good enough exit, so it looks like Stefan Maurienne's going to have it as they head towards 6 there, Richard.
Yes, he was on the outside there, on the inside, sorry, but he was turning hard to avoid any kind of contact with Stefan, and Stefan took advantage of that, and as they head now towards turn 8, he's got a small gap between himself and Stefan now, so it's not a close battle at this point in time.
And typical of the commentator's curse, as soon as we start talking about it, these guys have now started to split up just a little bit, and the battle seems to have disappeared. But hopefully the draft will draw that back into play as they come back onto the oval now. I know as we were gone, German Afandador did finally pit after he led a few laps, and he has now moved his way down the field in GS class. In fact, he is scored as 5th, but he has much fresher tires than a lot of the guys in front of him, Kevin.
He does, but it looked like he was quite a bit of ways off the pace lap by lap, those last laps, so I don't know that staying out really helped him, and in fact may have hurt him. The driver we do know that was hurt badly by the pit sequence was Russell Clayson, as he lost 2nd place to Steve Brown, and is now about 13 seconds behind Steve Brown, so it looks like Steve got about a good 16 or 18 second advantage over Russell Clayson.
That's the kind of buffer that he's going to want. And meantime, up in front of him, Dan Rash continues to lead the GS class by a whole 13 seconds himself. And he seems to have made this one a little bit of a boring one for us up in the booth as far as the lead goes.
Yeah, Dan Rash had, as far as I can tell, hasn't put a foot wrong at all today so far. And right now he just needs to click out the laps, make sure he makes good decisions with traffic. And as we've seen with Dan Rash, when he's got a nice gap, he's pretty much impossible to beat.
Speaking of a comfy gap and, not putting a foot wrong, ST seems to be in the same position because Stevenson is just almost half a track ahead of Antti Tuominen, Richard.
Yes, I'm going to run through the order for you now that the pit stops have taken place. We have William Randleman has done his pit stop, as we see Stefan Overgaard in behind a GS driver there. He's following Arthur Chan. So the order at the moment is James Stevenson with a huge lead over the field. Antti Tuominen is in 2nd place at the moment. And in 3rd place, Arthur Chan, as we just mentioned, with Stefan Overgaard behind him. And Elliot Huffman a little way back from that as well in 5th place, Joe.
And I see we do have a battle in ST going on. Hang Ho Tao is trying to hold off Matthew Reinhold. In fact, he lets him through on turn 1, but almost loses it into the grass. He's still holding on to the back. He might try and come back at him. He closes under braking for 3. And if he stays in that draft, he's going to be able to keep fighting for this 10th position.
But I do notice that Hang Hao Tao has seemed to be going a little bit backwards. At one point he was battling with Stefan Maurienne, and now he is in fact battling with Matthew Reinl, so he's falling back by the looks of it, Joe.
So yeah, the clean driving seemed to have helped him in the first part of the race, but he doesn't seem to have the pace to be able to capitalize it towards the end, as we see Arthur Hermont go by in the Mustang and the GS class as they approach 8. And in fact, he has dropped a fair gap back to, or ahead to Matthew Reinhold. So I'm not sure that he's going to be able to fight back for that as they get towards the oval at this point. In the meantime, what is happening over on the GS side? Is there any good battles decently close going on over there, Kevin?
Yeah, there's a nice little battle for 6th, 7th, and 8th between Andre Trago, Alexis Molina, and Jason Breifeld. It looks like Alexis Molina is making a move to the inside of Andre Trago as we speak. Into turn 1, Molina's got the inside, Trago goes wide, and Molina's got the advantage into turn 2, so it looks like he's got that position.
Good driving from Alexis, a very brave move. And behind them, they have Jason Breifogel, who had a very early spin, if I recall, but hasn't been able to really make up for it. He's still scored an 8th from what I'm seeing, but he's very close to Andre Trago, and he's probably going to get an opportunity here as they come up to 6.
And
Yeah,
guys,
you
we
can
have a
see-
three-way battle in ST with Elliot Huffman, Ayrton Ellis, and Dexter Castro. Ayrton Ellis was leading that little battle, but Elliot Huffman made a great move into turns 1 and 2 and took the position from Ayrton. And now Ayrton may well be under threat from Dexter Castro.
So everybody wants that final spot in the top 5 to try and make some points up. And, you know, clean driving, you know, top 5 can still score you quite a fair bit. I managed to keep myself in the top 3 in the championship with only, you know, 6th place finishes and an odd podium here and there last season. So definitely stuff to fight for there. We've got about a half hour left, so we're getting close to the end, guys, and the pit window obviously is closing up at this point.
It actually is closed. Everyone has pitted, so all the positions now all legit.
That's right, guys. And the positions here with Ayrton, Elliot, and Dexter, I think that's the big fight that will take place over the next few minutes, as we see Ayrton Ellis coming on the back of Elliot Huffman. Let's see what he can do here into turns 1 and 2. His exit out of turn 2 was terrible last lap around. So let's see what happens now as they go into turn 2. It's a three-way. Who's the guy in front of them there? Oh, that's Ed Voras. So they've both just passed Ed Voras. So this is the battle. Elliot Huffman and Ayrton Ellis, Joe.
Yeah, and Ayrton is holding to the back, but he's not making any wild dives quite yet. He closed up fairly well under 1 and 2, and I don't think he's going to have an opportunity as they head towards 6 here. And I'm hearing that Alexis Molina has gone off, Kevin.
Yeah, Alexis Molina went deep into turn 6, into the sand trap, managed to get it going, but now he's back behind Fanador and Breifogel. And it sounds like Stefan Overgaard is off.
Yes, Stefan Overgaard going to turn 8 loses control and has fallen way behind on Arthur Chan. He is now in 4th place.
Lost opportunity for Stefan Overgaard, and every point very much counts for Stefan this late, especially as he continues to lose touch with James Stevenson dominating this race and probably going to be able to take the full points because James had pole, he's led laps, and obviously he's going to get the full points from the win. So I believe this, you know, if he keeps the clean race bonus, he could have a perfect score here.
As we see Elliot Huffman and Ayrton Ellis going at it. At the moment, Ayrton is holding station behind Elliot as they come down to turn 1, and that's probably because Arthur Hermond, I believe that is, just came by these two. But that's going to make things interesting because through this infield section here, we know that the ST class is as fast as the GS until they get to some of the straightaways. So Ayrton is closed right up on Elliot now. Let's see what happens here, Joe.
Yeah, he's right within the draft. He's just a little more than a car length behind. Closing in now as they come along this fairly decently length straightaway up towards 6. What's going to happen under braking? Ayrton stays in line, decides this is not the best opportunity. He's still got some time to bide and be able to find himself the best chance. He's very close now as they come towards 8. Yeah, he's taking a little bit of a peek on the inside, but he still stays in line. Is he going to look out once more? No, he starts to back off and let Huffman hold on to it. And again, this is for 5th position, closes in very quickly under braking. Coming around 8, they head onto the oval portion, and maybe this is what Ayrton's been waiting for, Richard. Maybe he's just biding his time for the draft.
Yes, that was a pretty clean exit from turn 8 there for both these drivers. And also up ahead of them, there's Dexter Castro. So, is that Dexter? Yes, I believe it is. So these two guys will be battling. No, that's Stefan Overgaard ahead of them. So this is the battle here as Ayrton looks to the outside, then falls back, goes to the inside once again now. So he's coming up side by side with Elliot, who's going to be brave into turn 1. Elliot's the one that blinks first, and he backs down and gives the spot to Ayrton. Joe.
Good stuff from Ayrton, very brave. He kind of sold Elliott a dummy there a little bit. Looked like he was going to the outside and then weaved back in. Elliott looks on the outside of 3 though, kind of wants the spot back, but he slots back in line before they get to 4 here and decides not to try and push the issue. But it looks like Elliott is just a little bit hungry to get back into that top 5 there, Richard.
Yeah, and I was mistaken. The guy that's in front of them is David Whammond. from Australia. So Ayrton and Elliott are looking to take over the spot, as I'm sure they will, from David Wimon. David is a very, very gentlemanly driver. He will wave them both by because he's currently being lapped, I believe. So they go now towards turn 8. Where is Elliott? Elliott is right on the back of Ayrton, so they come into turn number 8, going back onto the oval. So this will be a drag race once again to turn 1, Joe.
And you saw Dexter had a huge moment, and thankfully David Whammond was still on the inside there because Dexter outbraked himself coming into 8. But it sounds like we got another battle going on between Alexis Molina and Andre Trego.
Yeah, we just had a half-lap-long side-by-side battle as Molina went to the inside under braking through turn 8. These guys were side-by-side all the way through the back straight in NASCAR 3-4 and back onto the front straight before Trego got around. And you can see Trego's driving with a damaged car right now. About lap 27, I think it was, he had a self-spin into turn 2 and put it into the tire wall. And it's affected him a bit enough that he seems to be struggling under braking and turn-in through the infield, but he's still pretty quick enough at least to be causing Alexis Molina troubles.
Guys,
Yeah.
we've got some side-by-side battles happening once again here with Ayrton and Elliott Huffman. Elliott Huffman actually came side-by-side with Ayrton, took the position, but Ayrton's taken it back as they head down towards turn 6.
And this is exactly what Dexter Castro is wanting. He wants these two guys to continue to fight because that's going to allow him to keep up with them and possibly have an opportunity. Although we saw 2 weeks ago when he tried to get into a battle that was happening ahead of him, it didn't go so well, and he accidentally took out one of the contenders for the lead, James Stevenson, Richard.
That's right, and this is not going to happen this week because James Stevenson has got a huge lead on these guys. But these three guys are all nose to tail at the moment, with Ayrton in the lead, Elliott Huffman really on his hammer as they go onto the oval section, and Dexter Castro not far behind, waiting to see what's going to happen in front of him, Joe.
Yeah, it looked like he didn't quite get a good enough exit. He maybe had two wheels kind of off into the dirt, and that hurt him. But Elliott Huffman is really closing in on the back of Ayrton. Is he going to try and look on the outside? He starts to move his way up the oval, but he pulls back in line. He wants the inside probably, decides he can't get it, so he moves to the outside of Ayrton, coming down the front straightaway. Is he going to be able to play chicken and win here into turn 1? He stays side by side. He's able to keep it off the grass, but just barely, and Ayrton is able to squeak ahead of him before they break for turn 2. And Elliott tries to do the over-under on him, but it wasn't quite enough. He gets very close under braking for 3. And still has to slap back in line, and Dexter is doing a very good job of keeping patient behind them and didn't try to quite get in that mix. That would have been a sort of keg of powder, a powder keg. Thank you, I'm losing words. Off to you, Richard.
Yep, Dexter had a bit of a look as they came into turn 2, but wisely backed out of it. So he's currently just holding station behind these two once again. And Ayrton's doing a pretty good job of holding Elliott off. You will notice as they go onto the oval, and Dan Rash is going to be the guy that throws everything a bit out of whack here as he comes onto the back of Elliott now. And they all come onto the oval section with Dexter Castro wisely just sitting back as Dan blows by these two and leaves the battle. I was going to say that Ayrton's been doing a pretty good job on the oval by sticking very, very close to the inside. He's doing that again, so that kind of takes away one of the options from Elliott Huffman. He has to go to the outside, which he's doing right now, Joe.
Yeah, and you can continue to do that. If you manage to hold on to that inside line, you can hold somebody off. But as you can see, depending on the run that the other guy gets, you could probably get him. And this time, Elliott is just a little bit ahead, and he manages to get ahead of Ayrton through turn 1. Excellent stuff from him. Since he's managed to pull that off, let's hop over to GS, because I hear that we've got a battle going over there, too.
Yeah, this battle for 7th between Andre Trego and Alexis Molina has been hotting up, and it allowed the 9th place car, Jonathan Auger, to catch up. And there was a great chest battle on the last lap between Molina and Trego as they went side by side under braking through 8. And then approaching turn 1, Trego went very defensive and suckered Molina into completely losing his rhythm and his marking points. And Molina went very wide in turn 1 and lost that position to Jonathan Auger, who's having having a very quiet but good run as he's caught up with these guys in front of him.
Yes, Auger did go off a little bit earlier on, I believe. Had a bit of a moment in 2 and 3, but seems to have suffered not much for it, as he is currently scored in 8th and looking to vie for 7th away from Andre Trago. And Trago goes a little bit wide, slides through turn 2. This is going to give Auger a chance to slip inside through 3. That's not typically a passing zone, but opportunistic stuff from Auger. As you said, quiet but effective. Good stuff from him.
Yeah,
Not
that
to
was a great
mention the
pass.
fact that... Go ahead, Kevin, sorry.
No, that was a great pass from Auger. He saw the opening and took advantage of it, and now he's got to just try and drive away a little bit from Andre Trago. Richard.
Yeah, I've been watching this battle too. Extremely interesting, Kevin. Alexis Molina currently at the rear of the three of them. But I think as they get back onto the oval, he should close up a bit.
Yeah, I think the damage on Andre Drago's car is hurting him a little bit on the banking, and that seems to really help Alexis Molina. But I think the damage is probably a little worse, looks worse than it actually is, as Trago seems to have kind of gathered the car back under him, and he's running pretty similar times to the guys around him. So this is a great battle these three have got going on right now.
And I noticed that Alexis has actually dropped back to the other two as they get onto the oval. So I'm wondering if he's got a little bit of damage or if he's just being very conservative there, Kevin.
No, I think he's okay. He just seems to be a little aggressive getting onto power out of that tight turn 8, which can be a little easy to get too much oversteer there and really have difficulties getting the car pointed in the right direction. So I think maybe he's just struggling with that a little bit, as he seems to be very good into turns 1 and 2.
That's right. He's closed right up onto the back now of Andre Trago. So they've got an ST car in front of them. I believe that may well be, who is that guy? Is that Antti Tuominen in front of them?
Well, in the meantime, speaking of which, the ST battle between Ayrton and Elliott continues on for 5th, and Ayrton is closing up right on the bumper. He wants the inside. He's holding behind him, decides not to try and look on the inside through 1 and backs off. This has allowed Dexter to catch up, but he seems to have gotten separated because Steve Brown has gotten between them now. So nothing happening there. How's that battle between Andre and Alexis going?
Well, Trago just went defensive into turn 8 and gets loose on the power. This is going to give Molina a good shot to really make a move into turn 1 as he tucks behind him on the back straight.
That's right. He's right on his tail at this point in time. As I've switched to GS now, it seems to be some really interesting stuff happening here. He goes to the outside there, Kevin.
Yeah, and Molina's getting a little shaky on the outside line there, and he tucks back in behind Andre Trago. And let's see what their plan is for this time. Looks like Trago's going to go with the standard line, and Molina's going to look to the inside for turn 1. They're both breaking. It looks like Molina's got it. Trago's very wide as they approach turn 2. They're still side by side, but looks like Molina's finally going to get it, and Molina goes off.
Molina went right off onto the grass there, so Andre Trago gets the spot back again there, Kevin.
Yeah, this is Alexis Molina's got to be kicking himself. He seems to be quicker than Andre Trago, but every time he makes a passing attempt and seems to have it stuck, he makes a mistake, and Trago gets right back around him.
Yeah, good stuff from these guys. In fact, there are some really nice battles going on. How's the other battle going between Ellis and Huffman, Joe?
Well, right now, Ellis is on the outside of Huffman as they're coming out of the oval portion onto the front straightaway, and Ellis has got a very good run this time. In fact, he's probably going to be clear of him by the time they get to turn 1. He is. Elliott moves back into line. What's going to happen under braking for 2, though? Dexter is going to close up on the pair of them, but right now it's Ayrton Ellis in 5th, Elliott Huffman in 6th, and Dexter Castro in 7th.
That was very close there, Joe. They nearly made contact on the entry to turn 1. As Elliott Huffman, they are putting everything on the line at the moment. Bear in mind, we're 1 hour and 17 minutes into the race, so time's running out.
And Huffman has a lot to fight for, being one of the top 5 in the championship here. He's going to want a podium spot because the top 3 spots in each class does pay off in cash prizes. So these guys are fighting for something that they all want here.
And Molina's making another move on Trago into turn 1. Looks like once again he's going to have it as they're side by side once again to turn 2. Can Molina keep it on track this time, though?
He
And
does,
it looks
but
like
the
he
looks of it
has.
there, Kevin. They've got an ST class, I think that's Ed Ross just in front of them. So they should be able to make a nice clean pass on the run down to 6 here. So let's see what happens. Yes, Ed Ross moves out the way. They'll all get past him. Where's Andre Trago? Is just in line at the moment. Let's see what happens when they get back on the oval, Kevin.
And looks like Alexis Molina missed his apex through the tough turn 6. I thought he was going to go off once again and hand it back to Andre Trago, but and he does drop some wheels on the exit of 7. So Molina needs to just keep it together for a lap, and that should be enough to get him away from Andre Trago and not hand it back to the position back to him once again.
Now, and just looking at Andre Trago's car from the front, he's got some severe damage on the front of his car there, Kevin.
Yeah, he hit a wall earlier that we spoke about, and it doesn't seem to be affecting him too much, as Russell Clayson has apparently made a mistake or something. He's now being shown scored behind Nicholas Bailey. Looks like Bailey's now taking position for 3rd, so I'm going to try and dig up and see what happened there, guys.
And Joe, just going back to the battle between Ayrton Ellis and Elliot Huffman, it seems that Ayrton is in front and is managing to hold Elliot Huffman at bay at this point in time, but they're coming back onto the oval again, going through turn 8. So let's see what happens here now, Joe.
Yeah, he's been doing a good job of keeping Elliott back there, and Dexter Castro surprisingly hasn't been able to really make inroads on the two of them despite the battling. I'm not sure if that's because of him hanging back or just maybe some damage that's making it difficult for him. But I believe Amjad has some information as far as what happened to Clayson.
Yeah, Clayson going into turn 2 gets punted by the ST car of Matthew Reinhold. They both go out on the grass, but both of them are running right now.
So living to fight another day, although I'm sure he would like that 3rd position back. Clayson has not been having the run he won, but I see Elliot Huffman starting to close in on Ayrton, but he backs off as they approach 1. I'm starting to think this is the time that these guys are thinking maybe about, and he takes a look on the inside of 2, or maybe he's going defensive from Dexter, who is looking on the outside as they approach 3. In fact, he tries to outbrake Huffman, but he can't quite do it. Is he going to do the over-under? No, there's not enough space for that through this tight complex. And he's going to get the draft as they approach 6 here. But Richard, what I was about to say, are these guys maybe thinking of last lap sniping because of the draft at this point with only 15 to go?
The draft is going to play a huge part in the last lap or 2. Dexter got some really good exits, as you see Ayrton Ellis go wide there, but he's safely through the corner, and he's got a little break on Elliot Huffman at the moment. I think the big issue now for Elliot is the fact that Dexter Castro's right on his tail. He will now be able to take full advantage of the drive as he looks to the inside into 8. He makes it stick. Joey's got the position away from Elliot Huffman. So Elliot now needs to pass Castro as well as get to grips with Ayrton Ellis.
And he got right up on his bumper, and I think he actually did bump him forward a bit there, which, again, you don't want to do because you can damage the grille very easily and affect the aerodynamics, which on a fast track like this, that'll slow you down. I noticed that Elliott once again gave Dexter quite a bit of room, and I feel like that's the reason you've seen Elliott so far up. He knows when to give up the ghost. He knows not to try and dive in there and close him off because Dexter's a train and he's coming through. You don't want to try and block him off.
As we have seen on numerous occasions, I noticed that going into 1, Elliott backed right down. And now Dexter, I think Dexter's got the bit between his teeth. He's looking now to Ayrton Ellis to see what he can do there, Joe.
Now, we've seen last lap fiascos with Team 49 Motorsports before. Well, I'm not sure if this is a good thing that Dexter's coming up on Ayrton, because even though Ayrton is a lot cleaner than he used to be, a season ago back when he had the controversy, these two guys are very hard chargers. I have to imagine we're going to see some fireworks if they're fighting for that 5th position come the last lap.
Well, that's right, and it's an hour 30 minutes race, so there's only 8 minutes left, so we're only looking at a few more laps to go. So I think it might be appropriate for us to run through, through the standings at the moment, Joe.
Absolutely. In GS class, in first, we still have Dan Rash with a 17-second lead, so really running away with this thing. Steve Brown is holding on to second, and behind him in third is Nicholas Bailey, a whole another half a minute down. Then we have Russell Clayson in fourth, about 5 seconds back from him, and in fifth it's German Fanador, who is fairly close, but a teammate of Russell Clayson, so they might not fight too hard. Might want to just get to the finish. What's the top 5 in ST look like?
Well, James Stevenson is currently in first place. He's got a massive gap over Antti Tuominen, and then Arthur Chan is in third place at the moment. Stefan Overgaard, who had a few problems earlier, just a little earlier on, when he was actually leading Arthur Chan, is in fourth place now. Ayrton Ellis is top 5 at the moment, and Dexter Castro and Elliot Huffman close behind him. So the 5th place battle is still on, but that's the standing at the moment. Back to you, Joe.
Well, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here and say that I called it, because I just saw a German Fanador go by Russell Clayson, and Russell essentially just let him by on the outside as they headed towards turn 1. He's on the back of a Fanador right now, but doesn't seem to really be threatening too much.
Yeah,
and side-by-side action here going into turn 8 between Elliot Huffman and Dexter Castro. Elliot backs down slightly, allows Dexter Castro to continue in front of him, but he's right on the back of him once again, Joe.
Yeah, in fact, he got a way better exit than Dexter did, and he's already by his side before they get to turns 10 and 11. This could work in his favor if he could just get ahead. He's getting close. If he can just slot in front of Dexter, that's going to give him the spot. He's ahead now. Is he going to try and move down and chop him off? Yes, he does. He moves in front before they get to that final corner. So really good move from Elliot Huffman there to be able to get by before the outside could hold him back.
But Dexter Castro looks to the inside once again. Dexter's pretty good into turn 1 here, so Dexter will probably take it back, because Elliot has shown that he's very circumspect going into turn 1. He likes the exit from turn 2 though, as they go into 3. Let's see what happens now. No, he's just going to hold station until they, perhaps until they get to the turn 8 once again, Joel.
Yeah, I think Elliot's playing it very smart here. He knows that if you can get ahead by the start-finish line, that's what really counts here. And this is really what Ayrton needs, who's moved a fair bit of ways, like maybe what looks like 5 or 6 seconds up the track away from these guys. So he's going to be able to hold on to this 5th as long as they keep battling like that.
Yes, and folks, we're really sorry to be concentrating on this battle when our leaders are out there as well. We haven't even shown them, and they're leading the race, but they've got such huge leads both in ST and GS that in fact we'll just have to go back to them when they cross the finish line.
Yeah, in fact, the top 5 in ST, none of them are any closer than I think 10 or 12 seconds from each other, so there's really no fight to show among those guys.
And so what's happening in the GS class right now, Kevin?
Well, my favorite battle is still the battle for 7th between Alexis Molina, Jonathan Auger, and Andre Trago. These guys are all sitting about a second apart from each other, and they keep kind of getting a little closer and a little further away. Looks like Molina's got a little bit of a gap right now. But the car on the move right now is Jason Breifogel. He's approaching Russell Clayson very quickly. And I think Clayson has some damage on his left rear from the contact with Matthew Reinl, and is struggling a little bit with the car as he's mixed up with some ST cars through turns 2, 3, and 4 here right now.
In fact, that is the ST cars of Dexter Castro and Elliot Huffman. They're side by side right now, going through 3 and 4, coming through 5 right now. Elliot Huffman has a better exit, and Jason Breifogel is going to come on by. And I'm hearing word that Tuominen had a spin. Is that right, Amjad?
Yeah, he had a spin going into turn 2. As of right now, he still has a big lead off the 10 in 3rd place.
Well, we'll stay with this battle that we're watching right now instead of going to that, since there's nothing there, because Elliot Huffman continues to try and hold off Dexter Castro. Dexter's got a nose in as they approach 8. He's still a little far back. He's going to have to do a lot under braking here. In fact, he does. That freight train continues to come through, and he claims the spot once again. But is he going to have a good enough exit as they come out of 8? In fact, Huffman already visibly is closing on the back of that MX-5. That 49 Motorsports machine is going to get a little bit of tap from the back from Elliott Huffman as they come towards the 10 and 11 there, Richard.
Yes, Dexter had a little bit of a bobble coming out of 8, so that's given Elliott the opportunity to get on his bumper. Now, I'm going to see who's brave enough. We know Dexter's pretty brave into turn 1. I think Elliott has to show his colors now and make a move, otherwise he's going to have to be satisfied with 5th place, or 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to be satisfied with 6th place or 7th place at this point. As he doesn't, he's not brave enough to make a move there. I think he's better through the infield portion here. As you see him close, whoa, he closes right up and then had to brake to avoid hitting him. So that's set him back a little bit as well. Meanwhile, Ayrton Ellis, I think, is currently in 5th place, and he has got a nice little break on these two, Joe.
Yeah, a fair break, and Elliott Huffman definitely lost quite a bit of contact there from that mistake, and that's the, I think that's the word of the day. The fewer the mistakes, the better. The guys that you're seeing out front right now are the ones that are able to run consistently. You know, with that tricky first and second corner, it's those guys that are probably the ones that haven't had the offs and have just been real discretionary on who they're passing when, as far as traffic goes.
And you know, guys, time is running out very, very fast now.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
As we see somebody go off. Who went off there, Kevin?
That was Alexis Molina, actually, who was in the middle of our 2 ST cars that we had been watching the battle of. I'm not exactly sure what happened, though.
I think he just lost it, went straight ahead.
Yeah, it looks like Molina just got a little too deep there and had to abort and go straight out. I didn't actually see it live as I was keeping an eye on this battle for 5th between Clayson and Breifogel, where, yep. So it looks like Molina tried to turn in, got a little scared about the ST
hang on.
there.
Battle for GS 5th. Claxon and Breifogel have collected each other. They're off in turn 1.
Yeah, that was Jason Breifogel and Russell Clayson tipped each other in turn 1. Amazingly, they both managed to keep it pointed forward and both rejoined, although they've lost a fair bit of time. Jason Breifogel did get the position. The question is whether he's going to be asked to give that back for kind of barging his way through there.
Well, guys, there's a mix between the guys in ST and 1 or 2 GS class for that 5th position. So spicier as we see Dexter Castro and Elliott Huffman, who look to the inside there. He's still looking to the inside. Dexter has got the inside for turn 8 though. And Elliott, you got to get braver, old chap. You're not going to get that position doing it that way. As we see the GS car, I think that's Andre Traeger blowing by these guys as well.
I kind of don't blame Elliott because I think Dexter's reputation precedes him, and I think he's giving him as much space as he can to try and get to the finish line here. And I'm getting word that there's something going on with Chris Moran.
Yes, Chris Moran is now on the back. As we see Elliott Huffman looking to the outside of Dexter, there can't be more than 1 or 2 laps left in this race, Joe, so it's all on the line right now.
Yeah, and Elliott is looking to the outside, as you said, as they are approaching turn 1. Is he going to try and make it work? They're going side by side. In fact, he does. There's the guts you were saying that he needed, but Dexter continues to try to outbrake him into 2. They're still side by side. They're still keeping it clean, though. Are they going to try and do it into 3? Dexter manages to outbrake him. They almost touch, but Elliott gives him room, and he backs off, and this is going to allow Chris Moran to be right up on the back of him, but that's really good driving from both drivers there.
Excellent driving from both of those drivers. They did give an opportunity to Chris Moran, who is a pretty fast and handy driver. So let's see if he can break this this pair up. As he comes right onto the back of Elliott now. Elliott's right on the back of Dexter. So this is the battle for 6th place, I believe, Joe.
And Elliott is really getting brave. He must have been listening to you because he really stuck his nose in on the inside of 7, and Dexter could have cut him off, but that's going to be the wrong side as they come towards 8. Elliott tries to squeeze him just a little bit under braking. Dexter looks just a little bit better, but this is probably going to give a better exit to Elliott as they come out towards the oval portion, and he's going to have the draft on top of it. We're getting word that Alexis Molina has exited out of his car, so he seems to be done for the day. Not sure exactly what happened. We'll have to see if we can send Amjad to get word. And I'm sorry, Elliott Huffman has moved to the inside of 10, and Dexter Castro has moved outside, so he's much slower. And Chris Moran is obviously catching him very quickly. Is he going to look to the inside? No, he's going to move to the outside as they come through 11. They're onto the back straightaway, but Chris has lost his momentum. He's now just a little bit faster. Dexter's going to try and defend into 1, and he's going to hold the position. So right now it is currently... Oh, and he almost tags the back of Elliott.
He does tag him. They're both off, and that gives the position to Chris Moran, Joe.
And the freight train strikes again, I have to say. That's the third time we've seen him do that, probably more. I think he's made contact elsewhere. We're going to watch the replay of that once again. And Dexter Castro looks like he just went in a little faster than he expected, and Elliott Huffman did not think that he was going to be there. Dexter turned in way late, and Elliott Huffman just went around, Richard.
Yeah, unfortunately, that turn turn 2 has claimed another victim there, Joe.
And I think Elliott Huffman obviously came out the worst for that. However, Chris Moran got 2 positions out of that thing, and I'm hearing some words going across the radio. It sounds like Dexter was apologizing for the incident.
Yes, and Director, can you please call it when we see the white flag? As you know, we can't see when the white flag comes out from the view that we have. Currently, I want to have a look at James Stevenson so that we can at least see him once in this race. He's leading by a mile, a good country mile, as they say. Antti Tuominen, where are you? Anti's only heading up to 6 now as James is coming onto the oval, I believe. So I think James going to come away with this one, Joe.
I was beginning to think James Stevenson was simply a myth. We hadn't really seen him at all this race. But yeah, James has got a very comfortable lead, and as you can see on the clock, we've got less than a minute to go on this thing, so white flag should be coming around any time now as Dan Rash is coming through the 3-4 complex at the moment.
And Dan Rash, Kevin, has been doing it just as comfortably, hasn't he?
Yes, he has, although he was helped by Steve Brown, had an off somewhere that I didn't quite catch, which has allowed Nicholas Bailey to get around him. So there's almost a minute gap between Dan Rash and second place.
Unbelievable. And Nicholas Bailey, Kevin, has done a great job today. He's in second place.
Yeah, we just haven't really talked about him, and he's had a fantastic run. And I wonder if Steve Brown's running out of fuel, as now he's got Tim Brokaw. Looks like Brokaw's giving him a push.
Yeah, it seems like he might be out of fuel. We're getting the white flag right now as Dan Rash comes around, and he looks to be on the back straight. So this is the final lap right now. He's coming through the oval in 10 and 11. He led from the start. He led pretty much every lap except for when the pit stops came through. And is this white flag or is this checkered flag this time by actually?
It's checkered flag.
Checkered flag. So there we go. Dan Rash takes the win. That is win number 4 for him this season. And Nicholas Bailey is so far behind, he is not even on the oval portion yet, Kevin.
Yeah, this is
guys,
just a dominating
we
run
should
by
break
Dan
in
Rash.
here now for James Stevenson, who's coming through the last part of the oval. And presumably he will take the checkered flag now as well. He crosses the line and he has a great win. An easy win, I would suggest, in this race, Joe.
Very easy for both leaders in each classes this time by. We expected something a little bit more fierce after last year's last lap fiasco. Antti Tuominen's coming around for second, but let's see, Nicholas Bailey is also coming around. He's coming through turn 11 right now, just about ready to claim that second position on the podium. Well done to Nicholas. I think this is the highest he's finished so far this season, Kevin.
Yeah, I believe so.
And guys, I must break in here. Arthur Chan in third place is slowing down on the oval. I think he's run out of fuel.
Steve Brown has run out of fuel. It looks like German Afanador has also run out of fuel. Guys are running out of fuel all over the place.
So
And-
where's Stefan Overgaard? Stefan Overgaard
He's in third place.
He's probably passed him already because he's coming up to the checkered flag right now. So Arthur Chan lost his third place there, Joe.
And Russell Clayson is actually trying to push his teammate. This is some fair driving right here. He's trying to push German across the line. Oh, and no, he gives up. He decides to take the spot from German at the last second. So Russell Clayson takes fifth. Jonathan Auger, interesting, took fourth. Jason Breifogel took third. What the hell happened at the end here, guys?
And Arthur Chan is still struggling to the line. Stefan overtook him. Ayrton overtook him. I wonder, he's coming to the line at this point. I have no idea where he is actually in the standings at this point, Joe.
Arthur Chan looks like he just missed out on the podium. He finished fourth.
Excellent stuff. And he's still going, so he's made it back into turn one again.
I don't think he's going to be able to complete the required cooldown lap that they have in this league. So,
Okay. Look, that was a really unexpected thing happening, and I believe the same happened in GS class, Kevin.
Yeah, the whole top five was completely turned on its head in the last couple moments as two cars completely ran out of fuel, and Steve Brown went from being 20 seconds behind Dan Rash to a lap down at the finish.
oh, heartbreaking stuff. Let's try and collect our thoughts and collect what in the world went on at that finish. In the meantime, let's go to break, and we'll come back with some interviews to try and make sense of this really chaotic finish to Homestead's 90 minutes. We'll be back in a bit.
Steve, you got to pass the racing under the white there.
Do you want to do Stefan, Richard?
Yeah, I'll talk to Stefan.
Welcome back to the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. We just witnessed an amazing finish here at Homestead, Miami, where multiple cars ran out of fuel on the final lap, completely turning things on its head. One of the guys that took advantage of that was running by himself most of this race, was Stefan Overgaard, but managed to finish on the podium in ST. Richard, would you like to talk to Stefan?
I'd love to talk to Stefan. Stefan, can you hear me?
Sure can, Richard.
Stefan, a quiet race for you, just steadily moving around the track behind Antti and James. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's a bit hectic in the first laps, but I got out of it okay. I had an infight with Arthur for most of the start, and he pitted early. And I actually thought he was too early, and it also turned out to be in the end because he ran out of fuel on the last lap. So I got third.
That's right. And Arthur and yourself were battling early on. You had the better of him for a while there, and then he got the better of you when you... Did you make a mistake there?
Yeah, I was being lapped by a Mustang coming up to the last corner, and I missed my braking mark, and I had to go off track to avoid running into the back of him.
Well, look, you got a third place. That was not going to hurt your championship chances at all. That's a great finish. And we congratulate you on that finish, and you'll take it any way it comes, won't you?
Sure, that's some nice points, and also a good win to my teammate, James Stevenson.
Excellent stuff. All right, congratulations on that third position, Stefan. We will look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Yeah, I'll be there.
And do you want to give thanks or shout out to anyone?
No, not other than my teammates, no one else.
Excellent stuff. All right, Stefan, congratulations once again. Back to you, Joe.
Yeah, and another guy that had a relatively quiet race was Antti Tuominen, who took home second place. Didn't quite seem to have the pace for James this time around. Antti, are you happy with second, with James running so far away from you? Is that the best you could do?
Pretty much, yeah. I was able to keep up with Stefan with the draft, but then I made a mistake in turn 2, and then he ran into the horizon. He's just incredibly fast.
Yeah, we saw that in qualifying. It seemed like he had a fair gap. We didn't see a whole lot of you on the broadcast. Did you have any interesting incidents go on? Because from our view, the top 5 seemed to just be incredibly spread out.
Yeah, I was able to hang behind James a few laps in the beginning, so we pulled a gap and managed to break the draft to the third place driver. And then I was pretty much, when Stefan ran away, I was pretty much driving alone.
Well, this is yet another well-earned podium from you on this. How are you doing in the championship? I actually don't have my notes with me. Where are you standing currently?
I don't really know either. I've had like at least 2 dropouts and a couple of bad races where I didn't finish, so I'm not really a contestant in the championship. Well,
this will at least help you a little bit. Maybe you can work your way back up into the top 5. Is there anybody you'd like to thank or shout-outs you'd like to make?
Well, I guess I was just hoping to get Arthur, Ayrton Ellis or Dexter Castro to the podium with me, but they didn't quite make it. But, well, nice finishes anyway.
Yeah, the lack of fuel at the end has definitely made it exciting. Thanks for talking to us, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, up at the top of the podium is the man who doesn't seem to know what the word mistake means, and that is James Stevenson. Congratulations on yet another win, James.
Thanks, guys.
And Richard, I believe do you have some questions for James?
Certainly. James, a pretty uneventful race for you. You ran away with it from the start to finish.
Yeah, it was good to not get any cautions to catch the field back up, because if somebody got stuck in that draft, they'd just be able to hang on there. But luckily they didn't, and I was able to pull away.
Yeah, it seemed to me that there was never going to be a challenge once you got away from Antti. Antti had a little bit of a stoush with Stefan, and then that gave you an opportunity to pull away. And from that point onwards, there was no stopping you. Good first place there, James.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's just conserving tyres, which seems strange for the MX-5, but that's just what you had to do around here. If you pushed the car too hard in a single corner, the tyres just went off and you had no grip for the rest of the stint. So just had to keep it straight for the whole stint, and it just kept the pace coming.
Yeah, so looks like maximum points for you there if you had no incidents. James, just a question. Your pit stop, was that according to plan?
Yeah, it was pretty much right when I wanted to do it. A little bit disappointing to drop back to second place. I wanted to hold Antti out from getting the lead lap bonus, but no, it was all to plan and as I wanted it.
Excellent stuff. James, congratulations on a great win, an easy win. They don't come very easy. When you watch the broadcast, you'll see what was happening behind you, particularly around the 5th place position. But congratulations to you on another win, and still being in the very commanding lead now in the championship. So we congratulate you. As I said, do you want to have a shout out to anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my sponsor Castrol, and also give a shout out to Stefan on a great 3rd position, and Stephen, who didn't quite have the race that he wanted, but he still managed to finish, so that was a good result for him.
Excellent stuff. Congratulations, James. And back to you, Joe.
Yeah, can't believe that James even wanted to hold him off from that bonus point. Really fierce competitor there. But let's hop over to the GS class, where third place finisher Jason Breifogel seemed to have benefited from that last lap chaos. Jason, can you hear us?
Yeah, I've got you.
I believe Kevin Lindbergh has some questions for you.
Jason, you've had some struggles this season, and then all of a sudden today you wind up with a stealthy ninja-like podium position. Walk us through those final laps.
I just kind of lucked into it. It looked like first Russell must have had a problem because he came back to me. Then somehow German came back to me even though he was way ahead. And we got caught up together back then on Steve when he ran out of gas. So I just kind of took advantage and got past him. How I got up here, I'm not really even sure after that.
Well, definitely congratulations. It seemed like you were running pretty clean, had a couple of battles here and there throughout the race. Rest of the race went fine for you then.
Yeah, it went pretty well. I got off track a couple times, and down there in turn one, I got into Russell. I don't know if that was anybody's fault. That was probably just a high-speed racing incident there. But otherwise, the race went pretty darn well.
Yeah, we did catch that incident between you and Russell, and yeah, I was wondering about that. That definitely looked like a racing incident to me, since you guys were pretty darn close to each other.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's all it was.
All right, well, congratulations on your first podium of the season.
Thank you very much.
Well, it sounds like a very excited day for James, or for Jason, I'm sorry. And I know that feeling as someone who doesn't get a lot of podiums. It's a really good feeling. But let's talk to the winner of our GS class, and that is Dan Rash. Dan, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Joe.
Dan, it seemed like you just walked away with it today. Did you have any troubles whatsoever? Or was this just a day in the park for you?
I'm going to have to watch the race because I don't know what happened. I'm looking at the times here, and it says second place was 56 seconds behind me. The guys that qualified me are down a lap, qualified near me are down a lap, so I guess I'll have to play some catch-up. It looks like somebody else's races didn't go very well.
Yeah, there was a lot of chaos at the end of people running out of gas, so definitely some of that, benefited of that gap at the end there, and also some fierce battles going on. I believe you led. Was there any laps in this thing that you didn't lead, or did you lead every single lap?
Yeah, I think I was the first GS car to pit, so there was a handful of laps there where I was not the leader, so a couple people got some points there. I'm kind of confused how people ran out of fuel, though, because there was a yellow, which made it so that you definitely wouldn't have any issues if you took a full tank at the stop. And I think I was the first GS guy to pit. So I'm wondering if people tried to shorten their pit stop length by taking some amount that was less than a full tank. I guess that decision was punished.
Yeah, they paid for being a bit of greedy pigs on the gas there, but definitely well earned win for you, and that is number 4 this season if I am correct on my stats there. So well done. And is there anybody you'd like to thank or people you'd like to shout out to?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate Free Domain Radio for sponsoring my car, the biggest philosophy podcast and YouTube channel on the net. Check them out if you're interested. But yeah, the Free Domain Radio car ran really great today. It pretty much drove itself, and glad to come away with the win. Although sad to see that other people's races didn't end so well.
And commiserations to them. Thanks, and congratulations once more.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, I'm looking around, and we do have Steve Brown in here, and he didn't have the day that he wanted, it seems. And Steve, can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you, Joe.
Kevin, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, Steve, you were having a great run. You'd battled back from that early incident and moved your way into second place and had a nice lead over third place. And then walk us through those last couple laps.
Well, with about 18 minutes or so to go, I started looking at fuel just to see where I was at and realized I wasn't going to make it. So went into fuel save mode and then went deeper into fuel save mode and even deeper into fuel save mode and still didn't make it. I ended up running out at coming to the white flag, I believe, and got run over by the rest of the field.
Yeah, that's unfortunate to hear. It sounds like the car was pretty good until then.
Yeah, the car felt great. I think my pace was even with Dan. If he wasn't out to that 14-second lead, by the middle of the race, would have been something there. But I pitted with about 49 minutes to go, which is what I thought I had calculated before the race. But apparently that wasn't enough.
Well, sounds like your crew chief probably needs to be fired. Commiserations to you today, Steve.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some talks of that, but car ran great. Thanks to my teammates from Turn 2 Motorsports and Patrol Data Systems and Solo Storm. And hopefully I won't see you guys next weekend, but hopefully at Lime Rock.
All right, well, we'll see you then, Steve.
Thanks, guys.
Well, it sounds like Steve was trying to be just a little bit too green on his fuel consumption there. But before we go away, I just want to get you guys' thoughts on what looked like it was going to be a boring race, but wound up being pretty exciting at the end. Richard, what are your thoughts on this one?
Joe, I see Arthur Chan in the interview room. I'd love to talk to Arthur. Can we get him in?
Sure, absolutely. I think we got a few minutes.
All right, Arthur's in the booth now. Arthur, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Arthur. Running out of fuel, mate. What happened?
Well, it's that Turn 2 Motorsports fuel calculator that seems to be on the fritz for this race. I was battling with Stefan. I knew he had more raw pace than I did, and he was in front of me, and I thought I'd go a little bit aggressive. So as soon as my fuel window, actually I pitted a little bit before my fuel window, so really I was gambling for another caution, which never came, and in the end it was half a lap too short.
Yeah. Early on in the race, you were battling with Stefan, and you actually got the better of Stefan, and he fell back a few seconds behind you. So your race was going pretty well up to that point.
It was. He caught me and passed me in the first stint, and it looks like I jumped him in the pits, and I expected him to come up to me, and I was happy to let him pass me and then just look for maybe a last lap opportunity. But I was actually able to manage the gap. I was quite uncomfortable really coming into this event, still quite green on the track, but throughout the race I was improving my lines and getting my times down a little bit, and that helped. So it really came down to taking a chance on the fuel that didn't pay off.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, Arthur, but still a good finish, 4th place, nothing to be sniffed at in the competition that's around you. People like Ayrton, Chris Moran, Dexter Castro, and those sorts of guys. Look, congratulations on that 4th place. It's a good finish, even though probably not the one that you wanted. So do you have any shout-outs for anybody?
I'd like to take the opportunity to thank everyone who helps make this league happen, Wes Eric and all the marshals that take their time to run the races for us, and a big thanks to Safecraft Racing for sponsoring the league.
Thank you for talking to us, Arthur. Back to you, Joe.
Well, now I'm going to try and corner you, Richard, and really ask what were your thoughts on this race?
Well, I thought that the race would be a lot closer than it was. We had guys with speeds that were comparable, or should have been comparable. Antti, I thought, would be able to be closer to James Stevenson. I thought that Stefan would have a better race than he did with regards to being really good on the ovals. I thought Ayrton might have done a little better than he did, but he had, by his standards, a fairly miserable race. Dexter Castro, I'm going to say it, even though it may not be very palatable towards Dexter, but Dexter, you got to clean up your act, brother. That was not a good race from you. Elliot Huffman, I thought, might have done a bit better, but he really raced a good race, a smart race, a very clean race. And commiserations to the rest of the guys. They were not really in it. Joe?
And Kevin, what are your thoughts from the GS end of things?
Well, we saw once again that when Dan Rash gets a bit of a lead over anybody else, he's almost impossible to beat. I'm not sure that he can be beat in that sort of circumstances. But we saw a lot of great action throughout the rest of the field. I was a little concerned when only 11 Mustangs signed up for this race that there wouldn't be any action, but instead we saw a lot of battles between those guys, and that was a lot of fun to watch.
I agree. There was some really good fighting amongst those guys. Amjad, what do you think about the CESCS here at Homestead?
It was definitely an interesting race. I'm just surprised at how many people botched the pit stops. I mean, running out of fuel at the last lap. Don't if that's that many people, you don't see it very often. But I really wanted to see Elliot Huffman's strategy play out. He was the only guy, that was running that had 2 pit stops. If it wasn't for his little incident late in the race, man, he could have had a top 5.
Yeah, 2 pit stops are unusual, and I have to imagine his incident is really what spurred that on. It's not really a strategy that tends to work in this series. It tends to be a one-stop kind of thing. But before we close up, we just want to give some thank yous. We want to thank Safecraft Racing, which sponsors the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. They make real-world safety gear for racing and motorsports, and they do a lot to help save people's lives as well as make this league happen. Also, thank you to Wes Eric, the organizer of this league, who puts in countless hours to get these things running. Thank you to the software and hardware that we use, iRacing.com, XSplit, Twitch TV, Audio Technica, and Aver Media. Also, thank you to the team here, Giancarlo, Kevin, Amjad, Richard. We all put in our own fair share of work. If you want to know more about the Global Sim Racing Channel, you can check us out on our website at www.globalsimracingchannel.com, where we have archived races and highlights. We're also on Twitter at GSR Channel and Facebook at facebook.com/Global Sim Racing Channel. Also, thank you to Eric Ekholm, who provides us a lot of our music here. You can find him also in TV commercials, movie trailers, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like our music, tell him where you heard it at ericekholm.com. Also, thank you to Dexter Britton. Dexter provides us with our recognizable broadcast theme song and has a lot of great music with NASA, TED Talks, and McLaren. Listen or buy his music at dexterbritton.co.uk. Our next race is going to be at Laguna Seca, and that'll be on June 8th at 6 p.m. It's one of my favorites. I'm looking forward to seeing who can tame the corkscrew and, some of the most famous and challenging corners in racing there. However, our next broadcast will be tomorrow. That'll be the Northwest Club race with the Indy 500 on May 26th, and that takes place at 11 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and I'll see you on the track.